right. What up, everybody? How's it going out there? Thinker St. James here on this chill Sunday night. How you doing? Ohio player, what's going on? It's be fun to listen to your opinions on. Yeah, well, we'll see. We're going to find out together just how crazy this podcast from Bryce Mitchell got. So yeah, if you saw either the tweets or the title of this stream, we're going to be going over the ArkanSanity podcast. That is where the now infamous clip of Bryce Mitchell espousing his affection for the former leader of Germany during World War II came from. Obviously, the clip has been going around everywhere. You might have seen I did an entire 50-minute video on it on the channel, which is out now. So this is like a follow-up to that. Didn't intend it for it to go as long as it did, but I guess I just had a lot to say about it then. But we're going to see. We'll see what other gems are waiting for us in the ArkanSanity podcast. So I wanted to start it off. Shout out to Beeb. What up, Beeb? I see you, brother. How you doing? Happy Sunday to you, man. I wanted to start it off before we got into any of the more wild and ridiculous Bryce commentary with this quote from Michael Venom Page here, this clip. I had asked on the watch along yesterday during the Saudi Arabia card why MVP did not have his country of origins flag visible during the broadcast. He had the international no country allegiance symbol on there, that grayed out box with the little globe on it. And I didn't know why. And I thought that the response as to why he did that, because I guess it was an intentional choice by him, I thought that the response was a nice way to start what we're going to be going into here. How and why he decided that was the conclusion he wanted to come to as to not have his flag included. So just going to let this play real quick.
You were the only fighter today on the entire card that did not have a little flag next to your name when you were coming out on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I feel like everyone's always trying to find their group, and it all it does for me is it builds more separation. We're one race, human race, and I live by that. Though I don't care where you come from, what job you do. You could be a king, you could be a pauper. I will show you the same respect. I don't care where. It's for me, just constant labels that are attached to people, I just don't like.
I thought that was a great, just a great thing for MVP to say. Really a nice way to win some points, at least with me. And B, I thought it was a great way to start this stream off because, going into what Bryce had to say, obviously sows a lot of unnecessary division, and MVP, I think, said it best. I don't care who you are. Let's just all kind of be cool to one another. And I thought that was pretty cool of MVP. So that I thought was a nice positive way to start this all off before we get into some of the more ridiculous negative stuff that we're going to be getting into here in a little bit. Hopefully it'll be goofy, and hopefully we'll get some laughs out of it before we end up getting to the real meat and potatoes of the Unhinged madness. But let me catch up with you guys real quick here. Beeb, you lost $50. Damn, $50 on the Saudi Arabia card. I mean, I don't want to rub this in if you lost some cash, but 3 final fights, main event, co-main event, and feature, all correct. Had that on the parlay. Actually made all of my bet money back for the year because I've been doing terribly this year so far. So actually did really well on Saudi Arabia personally. So I'm sorry that you lost, but at least you can get a little bit of a positive vibe off of the fact that I won some money. So there's some winning to go around, and you know that you're right behind on that one because you've been doing pretty good on your bets a lot of the times that you've been in the chat. you throw those $20 down and you're doubling your money left and right. So I can appreciate that. Want to hear him say it himself because you only caught the taglines. Yeah. Hearing it, honestly, if you haven't actually heard it, like him say it out himself, like you're kind of doing yourself a little bit of a disservice, because it's wild to hear a person say, like, with such conviction, the things that Bryce Mitchell said on this podcast. MVP is a goofball in the cage, but honestly very profound in this moment. Yeah, exactly. I agree. I thought that this was a really like nice way to start this this stream off, and it was a nice thing to hear from MVP. I don't think I had heard too much of MVP speak at length outside of the cage. You know, I know him from Bellator and of course his fights in the UFC, but he's not a person that I saw much interview footage of. So I was glad to hear that he's a pretty thoughtful guy on top of being a pretty goddamn good fighter, a guy who won his fight. So how about that? What in the Sunday is going on here? Well, I'll tell you what's going on here, Vitz King, my constant watch-along companion. We are going to be watching the ArkanSanity podcast. So let's just get into this thing here, right? Actually, well, before we get into the ArkanSanity podcast, I did want to at least briefly say that Bryce has issued a follow-up statement on the other side of all of the backlash that he's been getting over his comments. So I wanted to at least preface everything by saying, you know, aside from MVP's statements here, Bryce has also made a statement saying, "I'm sorry I sounded insensitive. I definitely was not trying to offend anybody." But I know I did. I know that a lot of people died in the Holocaust, and that's a fact. Hitler did a lot of evil things. I think we can all agree on that. I'm definitely not a Nazi and definitely do not condone any of the evil things Hitler did. So, I mean, again, not exactly a great response, but Bryce is between a rock and a hard place here. He's in a little bit of a pickle because on the one hand, he knows that he fucked up because the entire planet is telling him that he fucked up. But on the other hand, he is so committed to his dumb shit that he can't budge from the dumb shit. He is so locked in with his convictions on his worldview that any shaking of that, any kind of acknowledgement of fallibility just lets the whole house of cards fall. You know what I'm saying? So I think this is about as good as you're going to get when it comes to a response to all of this from Bryce, but I just wanted to put that out there that at least Bryce did say something on the other side of everything. He also said, in the future, I will be much more considerate when talking about the suffering of all peoples. It's like, yeah, but Bryce, you didn't really address any of the actual comments, right? Is Hitler still a cool guy that you'd want to hang out with on a boat? Reminds me of Bubba Jenkins in PFL when he was talking about how he wouldn't want to be hanging out on a boat with, oh God, I forget who he was fighting, but Bubba Jenkins didn't want to be out on a boat with a guy, but Bryce Mitchell wants to be out on a boat with Hitler. So do you still want to be on that boat? Does Hitler even want to be on a boat with Bryce? Question that I asked in the video that I made. Anyway, lot to ponder here with Bryce and his statements, but yeah, so let's get into the ArkanSanity podcast here. Switching to YouTube to talk shit to Rick Allen. Oh yeah, is Rick here too? Absolutely. What up, Rick Allen? Your gambling addiction is almost as bad as your Nevada whorehouse addiction. Brother, I only go 3 or 4 times every other week, okay? We're going to get that down to once a month, and then I think that I'm cured at that point. I think it's not even an addiction anymore. It's just a very passionate hobby. Bryce was a Nazi, but not anymore. I mean, maybe. That's what he said. He said he never was a Nazi, but again, what I said in the video, I encourage all of you to watch the video that I put out about this as well. But what I said in there was, you can't have it both ways, brother. Does not compute. You know, you either sympathize with the sentiments and, like you can't really extrapolate like Hitler being a hardworking dude who cared about his country from the evil. It just doesn't work that way, my guy. But Bryce is locked in, so we'll see what he had to say on a bunch of this here. Hitler didn't do great things, and he wanted to throw a butt right after. Yeah, exactly. Bryce drilled his ballsack with a power drill, not the brightest in the bunch. Yeah, that's what Dana said about it. I mean, bringing that up. It is a little bit hard to imagine that even happening in the first place, but that certainly does not lend any credibility towards his intelligence, I would guess. I don't know. John Wayne says different. Yo. This gets into a whole... Fitz, you bring up a very good point there, because that gets into a whole extracting the art from the artist type conversation, because I say in the video, I keep referencing it, but I make a bunch of these points in there, and what I say is that I don't think Bryce is really like a bad guy, and I still want to like Bryce. I like Bryce as a fighter. I think that he's like deep down a pretty decent guy with a bunch of dumb shit in his head. So I want to like the guy, and when it comes to like John Wayne or Mel Gibson, brother, for years when I lived in my old apartment, you might have even seen it in my old apartment when you were over there. I had a poster of Mel Gibson and Tina Turner from Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome hanging in the apartment. I'm a fan of Mel Gibson. How hard do you think that is for a Jewish guy? Strickland is proud of Bryce, but disappointed. He apologized. I mean, Strickland actually had a pretty nuanced take about the whole thing, so I got to give Strickland some credit. I think Strickland was pretty on the ball when he with his response to that whole situation. Again, this is all stuff I go over in the video, so if you want to see the full thoughts on it there, you can watch that. But let's get into this thing, right? So this is on Rumble, which is the only place that I could find the ArkanSanity podcast anymore, because it used to be on YouTube. I had it queued up from YouTube before, but I was like, I'll come back to it when I do the stream. And then when I went to come back to it, I don't think that it's there anymore, or at least I couldn't find it. So if the ArkanSanity podcast is still on YouTube, then I couldn't find it. Maybe it's somewhere and I wasn't able to, but they might have taken it down there, but it's still on Rumble. So maybe YouTube took it down. I don't know. I don't know what happened to it on YouTube, but it's still up on Rumble. So let's take a look. Let's see what we got going on here for Bryce and his co-host Roli Delgado. Roli Delgado, of course, is a former fighter himself. Let's just jump in. I would probably be pausing a little bit here and there to comment and whatnot, but let's see what we got.
From the heart of the Ozarks.
A lot of people would say Bryce is like the quintessential Arkansan.
Y'all know I love
Let me know how the volume is.
It's ArkanSanity.
We hunt, we fish, we build stuff.
Hell yeah, man. That's what we do in Arkansas.
With your hosts,
I'm not trying to impress nobody.
Thug Nasty, Bryce Mitchell,
If you want to make
Thug
an
Nasty.
you gotta break some huevos.
That's what I'm saying.
and Roli Delgado.
There's only one
Rolly with the
person that's going to
mustache.
make America great again. That's Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ.
And Jesus, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw two brethren, Simon called Peter, and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. And he saith unto them, Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. And they straightway left their nets and
A
followed
little
him.
loud. Okay, got you.
So I wanted to start this podcast with that verse, Matthew 4:18-20, because that is my goal. I'm here to fish men. Make no mistake. That's my objective. That's my prerogative. Okay, I want everybody to worship Jesus Christ. Now, we're going to talk about everything.
All right, so starting off, Bryce is here to fish men. You heard it first, folks. All right, got you. Thanks, guys. So yeah, Bryce is here to fish men. Starts off with a Bible quote. I guess that we probably would have expected something like that, right? They'll cut back to the wide shot, I'm sure. But what I noticed in the clip, the infamous clip now, of course, and I noticed it here too. Why do they only have one microphone set up when they have two boom arms? They've got a boom arm for two microphones, yet they only have one microphone going. Bryce is in front of the mic. Roli is to the side over here. And I guess they're just both using one mic. Maybe they're still getting their podcast space set up. It looks like they're inside of like some kind of Quonset hut or something over here. Little bit odd, the setup that they have. But, you know, Fisher Bryce. Yeah, Fisher Bryce, exactly. I mean, we know Bryce apparently had fishing on the mind when it came to this podcast, because we know that he is a fisher of men here. He's out here to fish men, and also wants to be on a boat fishing with Adolf Hitler. You know, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to Bryce, he'll cancel himself. I think that's how the saying goes. By the way, mad props on getting up early to watch the fights. You were just clocking in at work when you got the notification. Hey, Beeb. Yeah, absolutely, bro. This is what we do, brother. Anytime that you are around, we love having you in the chat. So thank you very much for always being around when you can, my guy. John Dong, how's it going, brother? 2 dudes, 1 mic. Yeah, just bros doing bro things, hanging out with a microphone, sharing. just passing that mic back and forth like bros do. I can't really talk too loud though. That's kind of how me and Vitz King have it on the watch logs. All right, let's see what's going on here.
But you'll notice that everything always goes back to God. Here with
everything
me
always goes back to God. We know that.
None other than Rolando Delgado, little Cuban on there. And man, I've just known this guy so long, and he's really been like an uncle to me more than anything. But of course, he's a coach. He's a mentor. Introduce yourself, brother.
All right, before Roli introduces himself, on a scale of 1 to 10, Vitz King, how would you rate that Spanish accent that Bryce just did there? Rolando Delgado. Give a guy a fish and he eats. Give Bryce a boat and he'll go chill with Hitler. Yo, I mean, legit, right? Not anymore, though. I don't know. I mean, perhaps Bryce has rescinded the fishing offer. He didn't say so in his statement, though. I guess not. I don't know. So, okay. So, yeah, here's the wide shot. You see over here. Can you see my cursor on screen? Yeah, you can. Okay. So, you see over here, they have a second microphone, it looks like. That looks like a mic, right? It's a pop filter right there. They got a boom arm with a mic over here. And maybe they just didn't have a cable for it? Like, why do they only have one mic for the two of them? And now you have Roli Delgado just kind of hanging out creepily over his shoulder. Roli Delgado right now looks like this dude that I used to work with. Shout out to my homie Sammy. That dude was fucking awesome. Roli Delgado, probably not a bad guy, just got himself into the wrong podcast. That was a 3 out of 10 Spanish accent. I feel you on that. Not terrible, but awesome. Okay, so I mean, conflicting opinions. Hey, nothing wrong with wanting to share a mic with your bro.
Yeah. So I'm one of Bryce's coaches.
You can actually still hear him pretty well.
And I'm just a little bit older than him, but we both had kind of similar paths. I bought some land, spent all my money on the land. I lived in a camper for a little while before I built my first house. He lived in a camper a lot longer than I did, but he bought land pretty young.
Shared camper experience.
We both were professional fighters. He's still a professional fighter. Both love jiu-jitsu. Both love hunting. Both love homesteading. Both love prepping. Both love what we think America stands for. And so I'm pumped to be doing this podcast with him. We have a little bit different personalities, and so we've had great conversations on all the fight camps that we've had and all of the fight trips. And so I think it's going to create a great dynamic, and I'm just really pumped to be here and to be doing this.
Little do you know, Roli, we both have very different personalities. Yeah, I think we also have very different perspectives on World War II. I mean, I don't know. I got to give Rolando Delgado over here some benefit of the doubt, because if you see the clip, we'll get to it, of course, but if you see the clip, like, he's really dumbfounded by what happens here. So it's just like, this is the calm before the storm. Super excited, exuberant to be here with Bryce. Little does he know, this is like watching like footage of like I mean, I don't want to be like too grotesque, but you know, it's like let's try to scale it back. I was going to say something pretty negative, but let's say it's like footage where like, you know, like you see the caption of the video and it's like dude walks into a door, or like car crashes into building or something like that, and it's like security cam footage of it, and you're just watching and everything's calm and stuff. You know, you're just like, oh shit, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? And then all of a sudden, a fucking car just smashes into a goddamn building. That's how I feel right now for Rolando Delgado over here. Roli is sitting here like, everything's cool, man. It's just it's just Tuesday, brother. We're just hanging out, podcasting. Everything's going great. Little did he know he would be attached to a clip that would go very viral for all the wrong reasons. Oi. Don't underestimate the thought they didn't have enough USB ports for one episode. Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. It looked like they had a hub, though. I don't know. Oh, they're using XLR. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. They didn't have the converters. Wonder how pumped he is for the podcast after episode 1 was this perfect. Yo. Seriously, dude. That would be the best way to come back, though. He just doesn't acknowledge any of that shit. He just calls up Bryce like, yo, what's up with episode 2, brother? When we recording? All right, let's get back into it.
Even if it's midnight on one of the coldest days in Arkansas.
Oh, they're doing this at midnight.
Oh, dude, it's freezing right now. If you go out there,
two dudes sharing a mic at midnight.
Freeze the pipe.
It's going to freeze the pipe.
Freeze the pipe, they say.
So the dynamic between me and Roli, dude, it's amazing. And
also, you know, I mean, I'm being a little speculative here. Not speculative. I don't know. I'm kind of insinuating some things here with the way that I'm talking about it. But I did want to acknowledge that I specifically for this stream found the gayest shirt that I own. This is my from the band The Pauses, local band, really awesome band. Love their music, but I was like, you know, for this episode with what we know Bryce is going to say, I was like, what would be the most appropriate choice of wardrobe for me? And I thought a downward pink triangle was about it. So I thought that this would be the gayest thing on the stream tonight. But really, two dudes hanging out at midnight, sharing the mic, you know, talking about the pipes freezing. Draw your own conclusions. Talking about how great of their dynamic they have together. Just two homies alone in a Quonset hut. Just two bros hanging out in a Quonset hut together. Talking close. Full moon up above. Anyway.
And we disagree about just as much as we agree about, but the love
I
is
wouldn't
still
doubt
there.
that.
And that's what's going to set this podcast apart from other podcasts, because you're going to see me and Roli just talking back and forth. And the biggest
I don't think that's what's going to set this podcast apart, Bryce. I think it's one very specific thing that you're going to say that's going to set this one apart. Mr. Rage Quit, how you doing, brother? Your pipe is frozen solid with the single mic. Exactly. That is one rock hard frozen pipe. Couldn't get Jordan Levitt merch in time for this one. Yo, for real. I need to get Jeff Molina to come hang out. Where you at, Jeff? Shout out to Jeff Molina and his very happy relationship that he's in now. Congratulations, Jeff.
disagreement, of course, is I believe the Bible is literally true, word for word, as it was written. I believe everything out of the Bible, that Jesus died 3 days later, he rose from the dead. Roli does not quite believe that, but this podcast is going to reveal his transformation, because I've been praying it on him, and by the end of this, he will worship Jesus, because that's just how God works.
Okay, so on a more serious tip here, right? So I have two things to say about this. One, I never understand people who have that stance that Bryce just laid out there, because he said it in no uncertain terms. He believes the Bible in literal terms. You know that the Bible was written by people. like, even if they're talking about the higher power that you believe in, like, it was written by man. Like, that's known. That's an established thing. Like, why would the Bible itself be the literal word of God if it was written by people who are just like you and me, essentially? I'm sure that there's a reason for it in his mind, but that's maybe somebody can explain. Maybe Bryce can explain that. That's number one. Number two, what he just said there about how he, has been like praying it on Roli and like changing his mind and stuff like that. That is what I was talking about in the video when it comes to echo chambering. And that is probably how Bryce got to where he got himself, because that's how people with this conspiratorial mindset operate. It's like, you're either going to believe what I believe, or I'm going to just continue spouting it at you until you leave. Like, there's no reasoning when you have as fastidious of a viewpoint as Bryce has. So it's like, if you want to be friends with me, you're going to hear my weird, crazy shit, and I'm going to pound it into your skull until you believe it, or until you stop the conversation. And that's how a lot of this fucking dumb stuff perpetuates. It's just people talking at the top of their lungs until some people start to listen. And Bryce was obviously one of those people. He picked up all of this shit that he decided that he wanted to, or that jived with his worldview that he wanted to follow. And now he's perpetuating it to other people. And Roli Delgado here is the unfortunate, I don't want to say victim, but, the unfortunate recipient of that messaging from Bryce now. The t-shirt to fish men with. Yeah, there you go. I got my fisherman gear on. Roli looks like, why am I here? I mean, already. I think he also just kind of has that face, though. You know what I mean? He kind of just has that, like, that type of face that's just sort of like, he's got those, like, kind of, like down sloped eyes. So he kind of looks like he's always sort of puppy dogging. See how happy Roli is about it. Yeah, exactly. This is a coach-fighter relationship, right? So, I mean, he is paid to be his friend in a sense. Yeah, I guess to an extent. But it's like, I think that a lot of times that line is sort of blurred depending on the dynamics. You know what I mean? Like, not everybody's going to have, like, a strict coach-fighter relationship to the point where it doesn't cross over into like legitimate friendship. I do see that perspective, but I don't necessarily like think that is that doesn't necessarily mean that's exactly what their relationship is. Like, and even if it was the case, like, I don't think that it would have gotten to, like, if Delgado wanted to keep it that way and like wasn't like given into any of the stuff that Bryce is talking about, or his thought process or whatever, he could have put his foot down on it and been like, look, dude, like, I'm your coach, I'm your friend, but like, I ain't about this shit, so find another co-host. You know what I mean? So I got to believe that there's actually like a legitimate friendship there as well. And also too, you got to like think that in certain situations when it comes to coach-student relationship, like coach-fighter relationship, like there are different levels of coaching, right? So it's like sometimes you've got like a dude who's just strictly the striking coach and that's the only thing that they work on. And maybe it's a fighter who doesn't drill striking as much. So it's not like his primary coach, you got a team of coaches kind of thing. So it like manifests itself in different ways, I guess. So anyway, that's I can see where you're coming from with that, but that's the relationship that they've laid out. And I got to believe that it's genuine.
God's timing is perfect, and God wants to see this open dialogue between a believer and a non-believer. And not too long ago, me and Roli's conversations were all about how we came from monkeys, and because I wasn't a believer just 5-6 years ago. I was not a believer. And
he hadn't done his own research yet.
That I'm just this perfect man of the Lord because I get up there on the microphone and praise Jesus Christ. I went through a dark period in my life where I was wasting my life away. And then I called upon the Lord, and he saved me. And I'm going to share my testimony later because most of y'all is probably tired of hearing it. Some of y'all who ain't heard it, it is incredible. It was a supernatural experience. But, everybody's testimony is not going to be something supernatural. you can actually reason that God exists and that Jesus is God by pure logic and by understanding history, by understanding the Bible and how it's true.
All right. Well, lot to unpack there. So yes, true, like actual logic and understanding of history. That's how Bryce got to the conclusions that he got to about Hitler. So I do want to know what his supernatural elements of all of this is. That should be something somewhat interesting. We're getting a lot of information packed into the first 5 minutes of this thing, and we got a whole lot more to go. So I don't want to keep pausing time and time again here, but we'll keep it moving. Don't you also believe that the Bible is literal? Since you live in Florida, yeah, no, I live in a somewhat major city in Florida. You have to get out into like the sticks a little bit farther for that to be mandatory, Rick Allen. Yeah, you gotta. I mean, but it's not too far away, really. You got to drive maybe about like less than an hour to get to the areas that you're thinking of. Florida is it's very patchy. What we say about that, like you've got patches of different like types of people. You got patches of different beliefs. You got patches of socioeconomic. Like what I always say about it is that like I live in a pretty decent neighborhood here. Like I'm in a nice living situation. There's a major highway less than 5 minutes from my house, and on the other side of that highway is pretty much the hood. So like you drive through the hood on a regular basis in Florida to get to the nice neighborhoods. So you can imagine that it's like patchy in other ways in other parts as well. Hope to see a Bryce nipple. Probably not going to happen, but keep it on your bingo card. God's timing is perfect. Great quote to enter this, Bryce. Yeah, exactly. God's timing was perfect. Couldn't have come at a better time to drop the gem of knowledge that he did later on in this thing. Episode 1, better. What better place than that to start, right? Supernatural. Well, he does see dead people. It seems like we'll see. I guess, right? We'll see what that means. How that manifests itself.
You can reason that Christ is Lord. Jesus Christ is Lord. So
facts and logic.
That's what really going to
make
set
it
this
so.
apart. Is we're going to be talking a lot about that and conspiracies and fighting and
and
stuff,
other random bullshit. But religion.
Yeah,
that's fact. That's logic.
This podcast, Bryce just got back literally like a couple hours ago from the inauguration, so I've got some questions on that. But as far as like the religious stuff's concerned, I'm not an atheist. I was at one point.
Me too.
And I do believe in intelligent design, and so I'm extremely open-minded. And quite honestly, I have to give that credit to mushrooms because I was a very linear thinker at one point in my life, and I didn't even believe in intelligent design, and now I can't not believe in it. So,
what the fuck? Oh man, I'm so glad we did this. So let me get this straight. He's not an atheist, and he does believe in intelligent design, and he came to that conclusion because of mushrooms. Oh, brother. We're in for it now. You have to imagine he pulled his worst takes for episode 1. Surely he doesn't have more for episode 2. Brother, I think that he is full of this stuff. I think that he will spout this stuff to the nth degree. You thought flat Earth was, the end point. I mean, shit, dude. I don't think that anybody thought that we would have gotten to the point of Hitler. So it's like there's got to be more. There's got to be more. He thinks that his ex-girlfriend is a witch, like a literal witch. I'm not talking about like, that chick is what a witch that chick is. Like, no, like a woman who practices literal black magic witchcraft. That's a real thing he believes. So I think that he can. It's an infinite well when it comes to Bryce. If Jesus Christ is Lord, does that mean Islam is all incorrect because Islam doesn't say that at all? If you talk to Bryce, he would say that all other religions are incorrect. The only pathway to infinite life and eternal salvation is through Jesus Christ, according to Bryce. I think I've heard him say that almost word for word. Some people praise the Lord. He praises drugs. Easy life. Yo. I mean, I've heard mushrooms do a whole lot of things to people, but never come to the conclusion of intelligent design specifically. So that's a new one for me.
I'm very open-minded. I like studying the Abrahamic religions specifically, and I know very little about them. So, but it's very interesting to me. So,
I like studying the Abrahamic religions, but I also know very little about them. And I was also going to say, he likes studying the Abrahamic religions. Bryce might take some issue with that based on some of his comments later on.
I welcome these conversations, and we'll view things with a critical eye.
Do ya?
With respect, of course. But dude, it's super awesome. So, you think we should flip in and start talking about the inauguration now, or am I jumping ahead?
Well, the first time we met, I got to tell them about the first time we met. So I was training. I was 16 years old, maybe 17 at the most.
Oh, he's known it for
Roli
a while.
Was a pro fighter at the time. I'd maybe had one amateur fight, probably not even. I was just training for my first fight. There's this dude in our gym. It was called Barada, run by William McLaughlin. So I was training at Barada. Coach Willie says, "Hey, I'm going to bring in this guy. He's pretty legit. Y'all going to train with him today. Don't worry if he beats you up, you know." And I'm just thinking, well, who is this guy, you know? And Roli walks in, and it's not what I was expecting. He's tall and skinny, you know what I mean? And the best fighter in our gym was this guy named John Chitwood, and I'll never forget. They started out sparring, Chitwood and Roli did. And Chitwood, who is a beast, man, he pushes Roli up against the wall. Roli does this crazy kung fu move with his heel, and he does it all the time. And he heel smacks him in the thigh, and drops the best fighter in my gym with the shot to the thigh. I mean, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. So that was my first Roli experience, and man, I had to share that with y'all.
Well, thanks, Bryce. If he got dropped with a heel strike to the thigh, I don't know. Maybe your gym wasn't that great. No, that was out of line. That was out of pocket. Take that back. Sorry, Chitwood. So how are you able to say that Christianity is more correct than Islam or Judaism, for example? No. How do you know? Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, that it's all it's all nonsense, in my opinion. I don't really I have no problem with people having their belief systems, but like if you want to know what I think when it comes to that stuff, I used to do a bit about that in my stand-up act where I was saying that like religion to me is as if someone came to you and looked you in the eye and with all seriousness said, "I just watched the movie Frozen and it changed my life." And you're like, "Frozen, the fairy tale stuff for kids?" Like, yeah, no, I believe that's like has shaped my worldview. It's like, okay, it's a little weird, but all right. And then they're like, no, if you don't believe that Frozen is how you should, like the set of parameters that you should live your life by, I am going to kill you. That's how I look at it. It's like people just with their fairy tales. You know what I mean? That it's everybody is entitled to believe their fairy tales, like, you know, whatever works for you. And honestly, I think that there's a lot of good things that come out of organized religion in the sense of like community building and, you know, people helping each other and giving certain people who need it, like some structure in their life and a set of basic guidelines to operate by, you know, so that you're not hurting other people and all that kind of stuff. It gives people a sense of morality who can't otherwise find it in and of themselves. Like, all of that part's fine. But if you really want me to believe that there's, you know, a dude in the sky who's watching every person simultaneously and, you know, judging every single act that you do at all times, it's just prove it. Give me concrete proof. But Bryce has it. Bryce has the proof. He said that it is logically provable that Jesus Christ is Lord. So we're going to find out together here. Yeah, okay. Vitz explained Abrahamic religions to to chase. Very cool. What do you think about Scientology? Maybe that is more correct than Christianity. How would you know? Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Why Scientology? Fucking paganism. People who the breatharians. What was that other one? What the Raelians? They all. What about the fucking any of those cults? The Branch Davidians. Fucking. I mean, those that was a Christianic one, but you know, like any one of these cults that has like a single like leader that they believe is actually God. Who's to say that he isn't? Me, because it's all a bunch of nonsense. Anyway. Jesus is real, but Santa has to be where the line is drawn. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Santa Claus is coming to town the same way that Jesus is.
I remember the day. And yeah, his first coach, number one corner man is like my best friend, and Willie McLaughlin. And,
I was just kidding about his
really
gym, by the way.
Met. And I remember that day. I came up to Cabot and sparred, and it's just like a cheeky little thing I do, and I heal people, and I have this weird timing with it.
Let's see if I can get my leg up here. I'll show you what he done.
Uh-oh.
He went, boom.
Yeah,
there's a that's a.
I remember that day. I came up. To
that's
Cabot
a screen cap for you.
And it's just like a cheeky little thing I do, and I heal people, and I have this weird timing with it.
Let's see if I can get my leg up here. I'll show you what he done. He went.
There you go. There's your clip. All right, sorry.
Boom.
Yeah, I mean,
and dude, it works. I'm not kidding you. It dropped the dude.
I believe that. Hit the nerve.
Yeah.
Don't try that in a street fight, though, man.
That's like an ultimate dead leg.
You know, he's practiced that a couple times, so don't rely on that.
Well, hey, let's. Thanks for telling that story. It makes me sound like a badass, so I'll take it. But dude, like, life's wild. I remember being at, I was working.
It's gonna get wilder.
I forget who you fought, but just looking over and seeing Trump there and just realizing
that was the Emmett fight.
Was that the Emmett fight?
That was the Emmett fight. I remember
so
Trump.
He was like 20, 30 feet away.
Yeah, Trump got to see you get fucking pancaked. Amazed that he wanted you at the inauguration, but it is kind of crazy that literally this was recorded like mere days, or not days, hours, I guess, after Bryce got back from the inauguration. There are pictures. Actually, I believe if we go back to his Instagram, this picture right here is taken at the inauguration. So, yeah. Oh, look at that image. That's what you want right there. Bryce and Connor, two most insane people on the planet, united. Oh, that's a great one. Oh, man, the hits just keep coming. Tyson. Yep, there you go. All the pics from the inauguration. All right, Bryce and the baby. MAGA baby. There you go. As I say in the video, too, you know, the next generation is being educated by this man right now. He is homeschooling this child, just so you know. Anyway.
And I was like, this is wild, you know? And I remember your last fight against Crone and Dana White coming back and saying that Trump had texted him to tell you congratulations. And then you get the invite to go to the inauguration, which
because you won.
It's just wild. So first, the first thing I want to ask you is like, what was the most, like, we'll talk about a lot of it, but what was the most memorable thing? Like, what was the thing that you left going like, oh, wow.
Hands down, praying over Conor McGregor.
All right.
Hands down. And, you know, I knew about a day before that Conor McGregor was going to be there. And I knew that I was going to approach him.
I guess they have a producer.
Thinking, what do I say to an Irishman, you know, that I've never talked to before, that we're just kind of worlds apart. I don't know nothing about this guy. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to uplift him with prayer if he allows me, because I also saw that he started worshiping Jesus Christ. And so I thought, you know what? This man's going to let me pray for him. There's no doubt. And I actually prayed Ephesians over in Ephesians. I marked it in my Bible with sticky notes. For y'all that don't know this verse, let me show you real quick. This is Ephesians 6:12, and this is what I prayed over Conor McGregor. Of course, the prayer started with just thanking God for who he is. I asked for repentance, that we would be forgiven for our sins. I just told God how magnificent he is, and that he's the creator of all, and thank you for everything he does. And then when I got into really focusing on what Conor McGregor needed, I went Ephesians 6, because it's something specific that I think that he needed. And so here it is, Ephesians 6:12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So right when I said Ephesians 6:12, you could see in that picture, Conor had me in like a plum grip, a collar tie right there. And, you can feel each other, obviously. You can feel every little movement. You can hear each other's breath. When I said we wrestle not against flesh and blood, brother, I kid you not, it was like Conor got shocked by electricity. He just perked up, and he went stiff as a board, and just, I don't know if he just perked up 6 inches or what it looked like from afar, but I could feel it because his hands were on me. I could feel his breathing. I could feel everything. And it just sent a jolt of electricity through his body. And brother, I'm telling you, that prayer hit him. And now I prayed to God the day before, God, let me pray a proper prayer over this man so that it reaches his heart. I prayed for the Holy Spirit so that I could connect with him. And so, we talked a little bit, and I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. He said, hey, I'm going to add you on Instagram. I said, okay, I'll add you back, brother. And we're going to talk on there. And I want to train, and he wants to train too. And I thought, I might not ever see him again. And he's so busy. You know how it is. He's a bajillionaire. I mean, you wouldn't believe how famous this dude is. I mean, everywhere he goes, bro, there are 100+ people. So I'm thinking, hey, he's really not even going to remember me. The next day he comes up to me and he says, the first thing he says, brother, that prayer, it resonated with me. That's what I needed. I am fighting these demons. Yeah. That's what he said to me.
He was on coke then, and he was on coke the next day, Bryce. I do appreciate that Bryce went straight to the wrestling with demons quote. And, Conor felt that Holy Spirit. That is some convenient timing for Conor to have found Jesus Christ after all of his legal troubles in Ireland, but I digress. For y'all who don't know this verse, and it's a 2-hour podcast where Hitler makes an appearance. Yeah, for real. Amen, brother Bryce, indeed. Perked up 6 inches where, Bryce? Indeed, exactly. I mean, this the Holy Spirit takes a hold of you in various different ways. Conor was feeling it. Those motions certainly weren't exaggerated based on the substances in his system. No, it was the Holy Spirit that was perking him up. Coca-Cola isn't illegal. You are correct about that. That is absolutely true. And if there is ever an investor in Coca-Cola stock, it is Conor McGregor. That dude is on the board of directors. But yeah. So great, I guess. Bryce praying the demons out of Conor. I wonder if it worked.
And I said, well, brother, that's the Holy Spirit. And I asked for the Holy Spirit to bless me and to be able to bless you through that prayer. And that's what happens when you pray. And let me say something, too, why I picked that prayer, that Ephesians 6. You can say what you want about Conor McGregor, but he is not a rapist, okay?
I mean, look, I'm not disputing that, but that is a beautiful that is a beautiful example of Bryce and the conviction that he has and that he puts into everything that he says. It's like he doesn't know that. Like, I don't know that. I mean, you go back and watch my coverage of the Conor trial for my actual thoughts on that as to why I would or would not believe that. But he doesn't know that. But he just says shit. Bryce just says shit. And there you go. Oh yeah, no, the pod, dude. When I found out that he had a podcast, that even before all of the Hitler stuff, I was like, oh, he's got a podcast. That's got to be gold. Then the Hitler stuff, we haven't even gotten anywhere near that yet, bro. We're 12 minutes into an hour and a half podcast. I don't know if we're gonna be able to get through this whole thing, but I'm gonna damn well try. All right, let's keep plowing ahead. Oh, that's funny.
He's simply not. And so I picked that prayer because I know that Conor McGregor is under spiritual warfare. Now, nobody ever said nothing bad about Conor McGregor until he wanted to run for politician. And now, oh, he's a rapist. He's this, he's that. No, it's bullshit.
Yeah, you're right, Bryce. No one ever said anything negative about Conor before him running for politician, as you say. Yeah. No, there was never a negative word of criticism ever levied against Conor McGregor when he was busting up cell phones and beating up Italian DJs. You are absolutely correct.
He is not a rapist. I'm telling you right now, he's under spiritual attacks. Y'all uplift that man in prayer, okay? And shame on you Christians that want to criticize Conor McGregor for things that he's done in his past when he's praising Jesus Christ publicly with 40 million followers on Instagram. Do you know how many people he's reaching? And guess what? Here's what I got to say about all y'all criticizing Conor McGregor for sexual impurity. Would you look King David in the face, in the sight of God, in the kingdom of heaven, and call him sexually impure? Would you criticize King David while God is watching? No, you wouldn't. You would shut your mouth and you would thank King David for writing Psalms.
Talking about King David from O Block? Because I definitely would not say anything negative about King David from Chirac. Just putting that out there. Yeah, I mean, but again, it's like the contradictory nature of all of this shit anyway, because it's like you're talking about how these Christians are being hypocritical by criticizing Conor, yet I think that there are a lot of Christians who would say that it's very hypocritical of you to praise Hitler later on in this podcast. But again, digress.
So don't you sit there and criticize Conor McGregor when you wouldn't say nothing to King David because you're scared. And that's what I got to say about Conor McGregor. He's under, let me emphasize this one more time. He is under attack because he wanted to run for political office in Ireland. And the devil knows if he wins, he's going to kick all them Muslims out of his country.
Oh, wow.
And he's going to put it into the rapes and the killings that all these Muslims are doing. And by the way, don't take what I'm saying and spin it, because these Muslims ain't the Zobas of the world. Okay, these Muslims are awful, bro. They're raping little girls and killing little boys. And you can look it up if you don't believe Bryce. Just Google it, bro.
Wow. All right. So, you thought the Hitler stuff was the only inflammatory statements in this thing. I will say that I have heard about there being gangs in the UK that have been alleged to have done some pretty terrible things. I wouldn't put it on an entire religion of people necessarily, but that there is some verifiable elements, perhaps. I mean, but again, the inflammatory nature of it is kind of wild. And for him to say that Conor's going to round up all the Muslims and kick them out of the country, yikes.
There's thousands of Irishmen in the street right now because they're protesting what's going on. And when I say the Zobas of the world, Roli gets that reference. We have a really, really good Muslim friend named Zoba. And let me tell you about Zoba. He's that type of Muslim that's just like, he's like best friend material. Like if you're out of town, he'll watch your dogs for you. He'll watch your cows. He mows lawns for a living. Hardworking man. He moved from Yemen to America, and now he's American. I'm telling you, he loves America. He's red, white, and blue. He'll fight and die for this country alongside of us Christians. And Zoba is the epitome of a best friend. So
would you consider Zoba one of the good ones, Bryce. He's not like those other people. He gets a pass because he is, conforming to your outlook a little bit more so than the impure of his kind. Maybe I'm putting words in your mouth with that, but it sure sounds like what you're saying.
When I say that Muslims are flooding Ireland, I'm telling you, they ain't the Zobas. They're raping little girls. They're killing little boys. And that's what's up, man. And if you don't believe it, then just do your own research.
Do your own research.
I mean, essentially what you're saying by referencing Zoba is that not all Muslims are bad, but there's a majority of these, certain crimes are happening in certain parts of Europe that are predominantly immigrant based, and a lot of them are Muslims. And so you're referencing the Muslims, but you're not casting shade on all Muslims, because
that's right.
You know good Muslims as well. If I'm not trying to speak for you, but
that's exactly what I'm trying to say. And Irish has its own culture, and they live in Ireland, and that's where they want to live, and that's their spot. And they ought to not be flooding Ireland with all these Muslims. So as soon as Conor McGregor comes up and says that, then they attack him, make him look like the bad guy. And like I said, everybody wants to criticize him for sexual impurity, but those same people wouldn't criticize King David for what he done to Bathsheba. Okay, so I'm just telling you, all men fall short of the glory of God. And Conor McGregor is now my friend.
All right. So, that is a common talking point of a lot of the far right. The idea of exclusions to immigrant populations and things like that. There's a broader conversation that could be had about that, but I'm not going to go into all of that here right now. So, again, I do think that there is some kind of like what Roli was saying there, that there is probably a little bit of a legitimacy to some of the elements of that, but expelling an entire group of people based on their religion from the country is perhaps not the exact right way to combat the negative things that are happening in the country.
Well, that first of all, I think we're all rooting for him, because he just, he burst onto the scene from, welfare in Ireland to being, literally, like, as cliche as it is, changing the game. And then that happens to men, and all of the money and all of the fame and a lot of the worldly stuff comes with that. So I'm glad you got to meet him. I mean, you always have a perception of somebody in your mind, and then, if you proverbially break bread with them, and then all of a sudden, like, they're not whatever box you put them in.
That's right.
So that's super awesome. So you're there, you're with McGregor, a lot of other big names there. Like, I know this was like a super pivotal point in the election. In the country. And every election is kind of like sold that way. And I've always personally just not bought it and voted third party. And this was like the first election in a long time, since I was like super young, that I voted Republican again. I've been voting Libertarian for a long time. And so I voted for Trump. And, a lot of people, they put Democrats in a box and they put Trump supporters in a box. And I'm as libertarian as you can get. But what was that? All of that preface is to the question, the real energy there. Was it like, we get to be here, we're having a lot of fun? Or was it, oh my God, thank goodness he won. I'm pumped about the changes. I'm pumped about, shutting the border down. I'm pumped about cutting, ridiculous spending. I'm pumped about getting rid of DEI stuff. Like, what was the energy like? Was it more of a party or more of like excitement about the election? Like, what did you take from that?
I wanted to just jump in here to say that it's kind of unfortunate that it sounds like Delgado was a pretty like on the ball kind of guy for a lot of his life, and it seems that he's been kind of seduced into this more fringe stuff. But he's not like fully there, but he's a little bit closer to it than he once was, and that is kind of unfortunate, it would seem, because he seems a little bit, to me at least, like a level-headed guy that just sort of tipped the scales in one direction. And I would have thought it would have been better for him to kind of stay where he was at, but whatever. I guess he's happy with where he's gotten to.
I mean, everybody was filled with joy and happiness. If anything, I was probably the most skeptical about the future because I'm just not convinced that we're going to turn the country around that quickly and everything's going to be perfect. I think that we're still under attack from evil elites. I do think that Donald Trump is a good guy, but I think something big is coming. And I don't know what, but I'm just telling you, I think they're going to burn another city down. I think they're going to flood another city. I think they're going to let out another virus.
They always have this fucking end times mentality, these people. This is like the QAnon shit. Oh, the storm is coming. The storm is coming. It's just, we're going to be fucking old and gray waiting for this fucking storm to come, man. Or it's always just perpetually happening, so that this narrative can continue. Because if it happens, whatever, I mean, like if there's actually something like major, then, I guess that's when this big revolution happens or whatever. But it's like, it just never seems to actually get there. And we're just always going to be in this constant state of, for them at least, struggle. And for the rest of us, trying to just navigate existence with people like this in it. Indoctrinated. Yeah, exactly. That's certainly where I think he had gotten to, and where Bryce is at. And that's exactly what this stuff goes to, is that it's an indoctrination for like that maintains and perpetuates this mindset. They're gonna burn another city, we're gonna flood another city. It's, yeah, I mean, we're waiting for it, man. And then when some natural disaster happens that would have happened anyway, you can just pin that on, the will of God because of X, Y, and Z. It's always everything can always be drawn back to the fundamental aspects of the belief system. They did the same thing with QAnon. It's like, Trump said, this, and this. So you twist that around and interpret it and, put it through a fucking Enigma code machine. And on the other side of it, you get some coded message that reinforces the narrative. It's just a bunch of narrative pushing.
Everybody there, you could tell that was not going through their head because there was so much excitement, so much happiness, and so much joy at this party. There was just no bad intentions there. I even seen Ben Shapiro there, and I didn't even say a word to him. I just walked right by him. I didn't even want to be anybody or be the person that brought any negativity to anybody. I was there to spread love and positivity. And I know if you get me around Ben Shapiro long enough, I'm going to tell him I'm going to beat his ass,
Yeah.
There you go. See? So he really is about this anti-Jewish stuff. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily why he doesn't like Ben Shapiro, but I mean, it would line up if that's the case. But yeah, no, that's great. Bryce is, everybody's having such a good time that he wouldn't get into an altercation with noted Jewish figure Ben Shapiro. I'm glad everybody was having such a good time then, Bryce. Oh, good Lord. I gotta know why he wants to beat up Ben Shapiro. Does it have anything to do with the little hat that he wears?
And I'm really not. I'm just saying that, but
I just love Candace, and you got that.
I love Candace, bro. Don't mess with Candy, dude. Don't mess with Candy, dude.
That's what it's about.
I love her, and Yeah, that's the thing, right? There's a time and place for everything, and that was that event wasn't about you, and it wasn't about Candace, and it was about the inauguration.
Yeah, I guess because Shapiro, I guess fired Candace Owens from his network would be what I'm guessing from this, from context here, because I know that Candace Owens was on his broadcasting network for a little while there, so maybe they had a falling out or something. But all right, I mean, so maybe it's Candace Owens and then the other stuff. But yeah, I mean, he is far right. So, I like everybody else at this thing, except for the people who are just there to starfuck, basically, which is really what a lot of this was. It's really like a big circle jerk of stars. You know what I mean? Like that's, I think, why the atmosphere at the inauguration was as such. You have a bunch of famous people happy to be cozying up to the bosom of power. Of course, they're all going to be happy. Donald Trump won. They want to be close to Trump. Trump wants to be close to them, and now he's in power. Happy times had by all at the Circle Jerk. Podcast should be called ArkanSanity. Yeah, which Batman villains do you think that Bryce and Roli are most like? I guess Bryce is the Joker, and Roli is more like I don't know. Was there one called the Thinker? I think there might have been a Batman villain called the Thinker. Maybe that's that. Yeah, that's what it is. If not, then perhaps the Riddler, but I don't know.
Man, it's wild. Like I'm not I'm generally, I don't want to say, like, I'm like a realist that tends to lean pessimistic at times. And
same. See,
I
think me and Roli have a lot in common.
But I have a friend of mine, and he always says, like, path of hope, path of hope, path of hope. And it's like, if the path of hope and the path of fear led to the same place, you would choose the path of hope, because why would you make yourself suffer on the way to the destination? And so right now I'm hopeful that we're going to get spending under control.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that we can make some positive changes. Obviously, I mean, I have a lot of opinions on this, what Peterson would call like the postmodernism movement, and basically the vacuum of like secularism and what took its place, and things got crazy.
Ooh, some wickedness took its place. Some weird stuff took its place, brother.
The vacuum of secularism or secularness. I mean, like, why does being secular have to create a vacuum? I never understood that as a concept. Like, people can have a moral compass without religion. I've never understood like this need for religion to be the defining set of moral principles in a person's life. Like, I am not a religious person, yet I know not to kill another person because I have basic human empathy. I have basic understanding of like the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do to you. I don't want to be killed. Therefore, I do not kill other people. I understand pain. I understand that I do not want to inflict pain because I don't want pain inflicted upon me. These are basic human concepts. I don't need a book handed down from a mountain to tell me to not kill other people. I don't want my things stolen. I don't steal. So I don't understand this idea of secular living creating a vacuum at all. You can just exist. But wickedness comes in. Apparently, that's what breeds wickedness, as Bryce would say here. Brainiac or the Thinker. Yeah, Brainiac, I think, is the one I was thinking of. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and
speaking of, I seen a big old tranny there, about 6'3".
Jesus.
And that was the only girl in
Bryce.
that whole party didn't look good, because that chick had a dick. It was Caitlyn Jenner, bro.
Caitlyn Jenner was there?
He was there, brother.
Did you talk to him?
Hey.
No, dude. I'm so sad for those people, bro. It's just depressing, and but there's no hatred in my heart. But no, I didn't want to talk to him, and
yeah, no hatred in your heart, yet you have to, call people like that by their birth genders and, and call them the word that he used there, which is pretty much considered a slur at this point. Yikes. But no hatred in his heart. Of course not. No hatred.
I'd like I said, I feel bad for those people, man. They need help. They need prayer.
Well, I don't know. I can't speak for anybody else, whether they're gay or transsexual. And I'm perfect. I don't know what, I don't know what his situation is. And he's obviously, and I'm not calling him a he to be disrespectful. It's just,
that's a he. I'm not going to call him a she. I would be disrespecting myself if I call him a she. That's wrong. In fact, it's a sin.
If he was here,
it's a sin.
If Caitlyn Jenner was here and he was like, Roli, I'd really rather you prefer to me as a she, I would, out of respect for him.
See, Roli is trying so hard, bro. I'm telling you, dude. Like, why is he in this situation with Bryce, bro? This is like a somewhat rational thinking guy who is being forced to have to deal with the bullshit of Bryce Mitchell, and he's trying so hard to navigate this with this person. Like, I have a friend who puts me in situations like this a lot. And it's just like, dude, I get it, my man. Like, you didn't have to do this podcast because you're having to essentially circumvent and walk on eggshells with this crazy person next to you who is going to be fighting you tooth and nail on your very rational viewpoints. Feel bad for Roli Delgado in this one. Why do religious people think we need them to save us and it's not Jesus, it's them? They want the credit that they've done right, not God. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Yeah, absolutely, right? It's a good point. It's a very good point, actually. I mean, like, if God and Jesus and all of your higher powers are as powerful as you claim them to be, shouldn't they be the ones doing the salvation? Like, why does it fall upon you and the followers to do the work of your Lord and Savior? It's actually a really salient point. I appreciate that, Chase. But this is what their lot in life is. Yeah, I can't get over how bad I feel for Roli Delgado in this whole situation.
It wouldn't be out of fear. It wouldn't be because the government made me. It wouldn't be for political reasons.
It would be out of respect.
I would just respect his wishes.
Basic human kindness.
Anyways,
you said his.
Yeah, I did.
You said his, Roli.
Yeah.
How dare you talk about her like that? See, here's the thing. I don't give a damn. I'm not going to call him a girl. Now, I'm not going to say some things to his face that I would say behind closed doors because it's offensive and it's not good for a Christian to do that.
Wow. Okay. So, damn. Really just coming out in the open, mask off, saying, yeah, I wouldn't do it to his face because that's mean. I'll say it behind his back, though. Her back, whatever. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, based on what they're talking about here. That's insanely two-faced, Bryce. Why wouldn't you, if that's what you really believe? Nut up or shut up, as the saying goes. No pun intended. But yeah, that's rather duplicitous of you, sir. Anyway.
To somebody's face just to hurt their feelings. But one thing I'm not going to do is call him a her. And I would uplift him in prayer as much as I could. And I'd say, look, you are my brother in Christ. And I'm here to help you as much as I can. But I'm not going to help you by calling you my sister in Christ. In fact, like I said, that's a sin. For me to stoop down to that level. But
why is it a sin? Where is it in the Bible that says that you can't recognize a person's perceived gender? I mean, maybe there is something in the Bible about that I don't know of. Also, is that the same for more passable transsexuals? What if Blair White was there? Would you not call her by female pronouns or whatever? What if there was a transsexual that you didn't know was transsexual? Would you call them by the pronouns that you assumed? And then if you found out later on, would oh man, you got to repent for that sin? Like where are the dynamics of all of this? What if it was the other way around? What if it was a woman to male transsexual? What are the rules, Bryce?
Like I said, can't disrespect them.
Sure, and it's like the Stoics say, and I don't know which Stoic it was, but you know, when you think like, are you going to say something? It's like, well, like, do you know it for a fact? Like, were you there? And like, is it true? And then the third thing that I really like is like, will it do any good?
Mm-hmm.
And like, is that going to do any good? And if the answer is no, it's like, there's no reason to rile somebody up.
I like that.
Oh, you like that, Bryce? I had to let that go there for a second. You like that, Bryce? Considering that what Roli Delgado just laid out, that those tenets of stoicism, Bryce Mitchell fucking drives a snowplow through at every chance he gets. That's pretty goddamn fucking. That's rich coming from Bryce. Oh yeah, I like that. Know it for a fact. Does it do any good? You know, whatever those the tenets there that he just laid out. Bryce Mitchell continuously takes those tenets, wads them up into a ball, and hurls them out the window at every chance he gets.
Yeah, that's a good way to nip gossip in the butt when someone wants to come talk to you.
Will it do any good? Will this conversation be productive?
Well, first, like, is this did you hear it? You know, did you hear about so-and-so? Or like, did you see it? No. Okay. Do you know if it's true? No. Is it good? I mean, will anything good come of it?
So yeah, so let's break that down then real quick for Bryce. Did you hear it when it comes to all of his religious stuff? Well, you read it in a book. You weren't there when any of this biblical stuff was happening, right? So no, you did not see or hear it yourself. Do you know it to be true? He would say yes, but where is the proof in that? The Bible, which he takes as fact, written by men? I don't know. Doesn't pass the sniff test for me. Will it do any good? I think that it is provably true that it does more harm than good when it is weaponized in the way that Bryce Mitchell uses it. Perhaps that's just my perception. But as I said, Bryce Mitchell taking all of those core tenets of stoicism and punting them through the uprights.
You know, and it's like, well, let's just skip it. So
well, the Bible talks about that too. It says don't gossip, you know.
There's the parables are amazing.
Oh, don't gossip, i.e. don't talk about people behind their backs. Bryce, you're literally contradicting yourself within the same conversation. Mere sentences apart. I wouldn't say that to Caitlyn Jenner's face, but I'd say it behind her back. Oh, but the Bible says you shouldn't do that because that's gossip, is it not? Anyway,
you know, I learned something the other day. So I've got this like read the Bible in a year thing, and so instead of reading it from Genesis to Revelation, it breaks it up into chunks and stuff. Actually, no, I didn't read it, and I didn't learn this in there. But basically, I think I saw it on YouTube. But I you know, like
the source for all the best knowledge.
Confusing, and it said like, well, why does Jesus teach in parables? And
well, he answers that question.
Does he? What?
I believe his answer exactly is because they have ears but cannot hear. They have eyes but cannot see. So maybe if I say these things this way, they will maybe understand me.
Really?
That's what, because the apostles ask him, why do you speak in parables?
Okay. Yeah. I remember some type of reference to that. Another thing that I had heard is that there was,
which is really just a nice way to say that people are, people are not often willing to put the mental effort into critically thinking about things deeper when they're not laid out in a manner that is easily digestible. So let me spoon feed it to them in a way that they can understand at a base level so that higher rational logic and reasoning is not employed as strictly. That's how I would interpret that. You're really just bothered at how Bryce assumed he had to save Jenner. Like, why such a strong word if you didn't feel like you were delivering God's message by hand, and it's to sit in silence and pray. Yeah, I mean, it's this self-appointed mission of these types of people to convert the world. That is his purpose with all of this. He said it outright. He hasn't said it yet now, but I mean, it is without a shadow of a doubt, the purpose of all of this is that salvation can only be achieved through Christianity, and it is my lot in life to make sure that as many people are saved as possible in his thought process. So it's selective, because it's like, yeah, you're right. I don't want to bring that message directly to this person who I disagree with when it comes to their lifestyle choices, but I'll pray for them behind closed doors, and hopefully the Lord himself will sort it all out, I suppose. Yeah, it's just nonsense. It's nonsense, and it's exclusionary thinking. The Muslim convo was crazy too. Like, he gets his info like Henry does. Yeah. Yeah. I would think that there's a lot of YouTube knowledge going on here. Like I said, the most reputable source for all information comes right from some dude who has a YouTube channel.
Wasn't a lot of people couldn't write. A lot of people didn't have books, and so they would remember parables. But if you're just like listing off like facts or like rules, it'd be hard to remember them all. But you remember a story, and that's how oral tradition can carry on. And so I thought that was interesting.
And it's true. That's how people remembered things, is stories, And it has a lot of, my favorite part of it is the Bible is so tied in with agriculture. And for example, you reap what you sow, and I've got a verse over here written on the wall. It says, this is Proverbs 24. It goes back to agriculture, which is kind of a parable for life. The sluggard will not plow by the reason of the cold. Therefore shall he beg in harvest and have nothing. So that's a farming and agricultural parable about life, because everybody back then farmed. They didn't have a fancy society like we had. They understood the value of farming. And what God is saying there in Proverbs is that you're going to make excuses in the winter not to plow, and come harvest in the spring and the summer, you're going to be begging for food because you didn't plow in the cold. And brother, take that and apply it to your business. Take that, apply it to your marriage. Take that and apply it to everything. And that's why those parables are so amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there is some validity to what he's saying here, and that I think is one of the major appeals of religion in general, is that it's very basic, core, foundational guidelines for a functional life. So, I mean, there is value in that, and him saying that it like relates to agriculture. Yeah, obviously a lot of that. I mean, it was a pre-industrial world when all of these things were being conceived. So nothing really wrong there. And that's, again, one of the things that I was saying. I don't really have a problem with religion if you choose to have that as your guiding navigational tool to get through your day-to-day life. I think there is legitimate value to that if that's how you choose to operate. Because at a fundamental level, there are, good stories that relate to modern existence. They're evergreen. There are things that just are timeless, kind of foundational elements to a functional operational life. So, I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with that. It's just when you weaponize it, that's where it becomes problematic. You still want to know if Bryce believes in Santa or not? Yeah, that's a good question. That's actually a very good question. Maybe they'll have like a Q&A section of the podcast for episode 2. We should write in. You think you finally understand the word cringe? I mean, it's a mixed bag. Because on the one hand, I mean, I do respect the devotion. You know what I mean? Like, anybody who has like a definite passion in life, I do have some like level of respect for at like a base level, because it's like, you know, a lot of people walk through life kind of aimlessly and don't really like put their energies towards like a guiding principle, whatever it may be. I mean, like for me, it's like my success and, you know, what I want to do in life, the goals that I have, my writing, you know, the channel, all this kind of stuff, like, you know, the podcast, these are the things that are like my driving aims, you know, and like there are people who don't have that. So I do think that there is a lot of value to having that passion, but it's just how it manifests itself that's a little unfortunate. I keep coming back to the word unfortunate when it comes to Bryce. I think a part of maturing is knowing how to lead and not follow, but I think, and especially with this sport, sometimes we don't see the mental maturity. Well, it's when it comes to MMA and the combat sports world, as I say about it often, you get a representation of all walks of life in it. And I think that goes for that element as well, where it's you get the most mature, logically sound people, and you get the most immature and base level people. You know, it's a spectrum. It's a very, like, you have such a representation of humanity when it comes to the fight world that everything is showcased for you in one way or another. Like, I think that there are some really, really enlightened fighters that are very, very smart, extremely wise people in this sport. Then there's Bryce. I would class my buddy Cody Gibson as one of those people who's a cut above when it comes to intelligence. I think that he's a very wise person. Shout out to Cody.
Yeah, that, you know, and that parable is relative to the early settlers of this country. When they first got here, they tried communism, and then, you know, somebody didn't feel good that day, they wouldn't go work in the field. If the pregnant women were pregnant, they wouldn't go work in the field, and it failed. And so everybody became responsible for their own food, and then everybody gets up and they get to work, whether, you know how it is. Like when it's your business, anybody that owns their own business, you wake up and you don't feel good, you still go to work.
That's right.
But when you work for the state, you work for the government, it's like, I got a sick day, I'm going to burn it, you know? And that's like the great example of like, if that kind of matches that story. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I love, and I think, like I said, I like kind of reading, and I haven't read, again, you know, it just, I'm interested in the Abrahamic religions, but like a lot of these stories, like they are great stories that and I like reading a lot of the Stoic stuff. Like truth is truth. And so it lasts, you know, as long as we're going to be around, it's going to, you know, the truth is going to be the truth. And
that's hilarious on this podcast. Truth is truth. I think that if there was ever an example of the truth being subjective, it is Bryce Mitchell. Also, just real quick, to the point that he's making about people burning sick days and all this kind of stuff, we have this Emp Lemon did a interesting video, like a set of videos about this concept that, like, we, especially as Americans, have this worship of hard work and this almost cultish mentality when it comes to the worship of industriousness. And that was just an interesting idea, because it's one that, like, sort of runs counter to a lot of conventional thought, but just it was definitely a food for thought kind of concept that he introduced in that. So I won't go too deep into it, but just a point to throw into the equation here, I suppose.
So it's neat. So Conor McGregor, that was a big deal. Everybody was super positive. And like what else about that trip? Because man, that is like I'll probably never get the opportunity to be at an inauguration. I would love to take my wife to something like that, to have that experience with my
when
family.
I'm governor, you coming, buddy?
Oh no! Oh no! No! Please, dear God, do not let that be a real thing. Bryce Mitchell running for political office. Well, I mean, I think that he torpedoed any chance of that actually happening now, but could you imagine? In this day and age, probably not out of the question.
Man.
Well, the biggest takeaway, one of the biggest
Governor Bryce
takeaways
Mitchell. Oh, God.
how beautiful my wife is. Dude, she just stands out in a room full of hotties. She just stands out, bro. If your eyes work, then you know what I'm saying, bro. I mean, look at that picture of her. She's stunning. She fancied her hair up that night, but so I got to give credit to Aaron. And then the people that I was around, I got invited by Tucker Carlson's crew. So Tucker Carlson has kind of like the Charlie's Angels, but they're Tucker's Angels. He has 3 chicks that work for him. There's a picture of all 4 of us in there. But anyways, these 3 women are phenomenal. They know all the celebrities. They know Mike Tyson, Vince Vaughn, Tony Hinchcliffe. They know all these people. So they're introducing
Tony
me to
Hinchcliffe.
these people, man.
Tony gets mentioned in that.
Oh, you got to meet Hinchcliffe.
In that list.
Bet,
dude, he is a riot.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan.
Me too.
I'm a Kill Tony fan, man. I've watched it so many times.
Yeah, we talked about Ralphie May. He said that Ralphie May was one of his best friends. Now, Ralphie May's a comedian from Arkansas, so I'm partial to him.
R.I.P. Ralphie.
So, of course, I brought up the great Ralphie May to Tony Hinchcliffe. But, yeah, dude, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Also, as we keep going on, I just, time and time again, am coming back to the fact that Roli seems like a really cool fucking guy. I feel terrible for him that he's been dragged into this.
I'm super pumped that you got to do that. I'm pumped Aaron got to do that. And let me say, like, you guys, people will ask, like, oh man, is Bryce just putting on an act? Is Bryce, he doesn't really believe that or this or whatever.
Oh no.
I'm here to tell you, like,
100% real.
Authentic, first of all. He's obviously very eccentric. And I'll say this behind his back and to his face, like, he's crazy. Yeah, there's a spectrum of crazy.
Roli gets it.
He's on the spectrum of crazy, right? But obviously, like, we're friends, right? He's honest and he's very literal. And so that's when people ask me about Bryce.
No shit.
I was talking to Den Thomas one time and I was like, look, he's literal. So, like, when you're talking to him, like, he's telling you exactly what he means. But anyways, he's a nut job. He lived in a camper forever, and he didn't need to, but he's cut from a different cloth, and that's why he's Bryce, and that's what it takes to compete at that level. And I am hard on my friends, whoever they're dating, their girlfriends or whatever, because I think the world of my friends. And when I met his wife, I couldn't believe how normal she was. Like, I mean, she's a beautiful girl. She's very normal. Everybody loves her. Just this guy got so lucky with Aaron. My wife loves her, and my wife isn't the easiest woman for other women to get along with. And I mean, they're really good friends. And so I'm just amazed because this guy here, like, girls, there's tons of girls that want to be with this guy, but after a weekend with them, they're packing their bags and they're running home.
That's right.
And he knocked it out of the park with Aaron.
So there you go. Let that be a word of encouragement to all of you single guys out there. If Bryce Mitchell could land a reasonably likable woman that everybody else seems to like, it can happen for you too. If Bryce could do it, so can you.
I love her to death. She is an absolute sweetheart. So when he was talking about her like that, I just want to emphasize how normal she is. And then we have Bryce.
And speaking of that camper is essential in my development because that camper is what you can also call a litmus test. Do you know what a litmus test is?
Well, it's like a filter is what you're using it as.
That's right. I get me a girlfriend. I bring her back to that camper. And if she don't like the camper, then she don't make the cut.
Bryce was pulling bitches with a camper. Let's go. Hey, credit where credit is due. I like that. I appreciate it. That's my litmus test is the wall of VHS tapes. In fact, it has been used in that exact manner before.
And I'm telling you, Aaron lived in that camper with me for over a year. You know, we got married, had a
Damn,
child,
she lived in the camper?
The camper's a 35-footer, brother. It's a 35-footer. It's a 2000 Dutchman for y'all who go camping. I mean, not a big camper, brother. So the first 2 weeks that Tucker was born, this was right after the Emmett fight. I'm living in a camper that's 35 foot. The baby's sleeping in the living room with the space heater on him in the winter. And just a wake-up call, bro. Just like, you know, we'd wake up, and I was building a house by hand, you know, and then Aaron would say, get out of bed, get your ass out of bed and go build that house, you know. And I built that house by the grace of God, and he blessed me with Aaron. But, dude, she pushed me to build that house because I'm trailer trash, bro, and that's just what I am deep down. That's all I want to be. But she pushes me to be more, and I would have never got out of that camper if it wasn't for Aaron. You know, I seriously wouldn't have. But you can't flourish living in that trailer, bro. I can't blossom into a butterfly if I'm sitting in there living in that camper, which is phenomenal. In fact, I still have people coming over tomorrow, coming from Pittsburgh to stay in that camper. Pro fighters from Pittsburgh, Coach Chris Williams. But anyways, they're going to be staying in the camper for, like 4 days, just training in the shop here. By the way, this is my training facility. Right behind me, we moved this table and the cameras and stuff, and I train right here. But anyways, Chris Williams and his pro fighters coming over tomorrow. They're training with me, staying in that camper. So it's a nice little camper, but dude, you can't be having a wife and a kid in a camper, bro. So Aaron made me get my stuff together, and she really pushed me to that next level. And I'm telling you, she just made this house a home. This little camper.
If you're traveling through Arkansas, stay in the beautiful camper of Bryce Mitchell.
Love it, man. I can relate to that too. You know, I really can. You know, my property was super messy when my wife moved out there with me, and then now it's like people that had saw it before, they come out there now, then like they know like she's been the driving force at that and making it a home. And
your house is perfect. It's a 3-story house. It's not lavish like a mansion with all this excessive space. It's just big. It's not a mansion. It's just big. It's nice, 3 stories. And you know my favorite part about the house?
What's that?
The wood stove.
Yeah.
I love a wood stove. I'll have a wood stove in my house to the day I die. I love a wood stove.
You know, that's it's not really on topic, but like it's wild to me, and it shows.
Honestly, that's pretty cool. I'm down with a wood stove. I mean, you got to be having the wood for it, but if you do, that's pretty awesome, actually. Probably make some nice pizza in that thing.
Like the average Americans, like ignorance and reliance on the grid, that people just don't put fireplaces or stoves in their houses anymore. And like, if the grid goes down for any amount of time, like it's freezing.
You might die.
It's freezing here in Arkansas. It's under, like, it's like 20 degrees outside. It is frigid cold.
Get a wood stove, dude.
Isn't that crazy? People build brand new houses, brand new subdivisions. There's not a single
$100,000 car,
$100,000
car, $20,000 watch. You don't want to spend a couple thousand on a wood stove, you dummy.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. I think it's absolutely wild. I mean, like Texas had that bad storm a couple
people
years
died.
ago.
People froze to death in their damn home.
Yeah, there was a time where people grew their own food.
Yep.
Right, and they had backup contingencies. You know, they had wood stoves, and even now, like a lot of people like us, I've built 3 houses. All 3 houses have had a wood stove. And
you bet. I put a wood stove in a camper.
Yeah, you did.
You ever seen a wood stove in a camper, buddy?
Yeah.
Well, come on over. I'll show you.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So, wood stove in the camper. I think that there's some value to what he's saying here. You know, having some self-sufficiency. I know that I certainly don't live that life. I would be definitely helpless if the grid went down. Another streamer using green and orange with a wood panel background? Do I? I don't know. Enlighten me.
So, anything else about the inauguration? I think that's the big deal. And then you can show me some of this proof of biblical, historical stuff that you wanted to talk about. But before we get to that, I mean, I just can't, like, I wasn't there. So, like, seeing you in a tux was hilarious. But you dress up nice, man.
Thank you very much.
Just like, and it's hard to look good next to your wife, but you got that suit on, and it was a great tux, man. So
thank you so much.
You did your thing.
Yeah, my favorite part was the red tie, the white shirt, and then the blue pocket square. Did you notice that?
I didn't notice the blue pocket
square. The red, white, and blue, bro, especially up against that flag, it just screams America. Mm-hmm. And that's the look I was going for, And, I'm trailer trash, but I was fooling them.
Yeah. Hey, no, I did just to see you get that experience was amazing. I mean, the whole, like, honestly, like, this whole thing, like, I'm excited to be doing this podcast. We're going to talk about all sorts of cool stuff. There'll be episodes where we're talking about different meals that you and I have cooked with Wild Game, and we'll have all of these great stories and stuff. But, like,
oh yeah, just previewing all of the great episodes to come
of your journey. I remember one time we were in the cage. I don't know if it was the Edson Barboza fight or another fight, but, like, you won. Maybe it was Charles Rosa. No, it wasn't Rosa. There was a crowd, and I remember telling you, like, just stop and just take this in for a minute, like, be present. And like, there's just, like, these different, like, amazing milestones in your fight. The first fight in the UFC, pulling that off against an extremely tough opponent, hitting the twister. It was just like,
that's one of my all-time favorites, bro.
Yeah. Credit where credit is due. Again, there, Bryce hitting the twister in an actual UFC fight was pretty fucking amazing. So, got to give it up to him for that one. That is a very rare submission. So, good on him for that. Shout out to Damon Blackshear for another one of those.
Yeah.
If I think about that too long, I'll just start crying. Amazing, dude.
And an amazing trip. We had a great time in Washington.
Yeah,
you ate all that pho.
Yeah.
Oh
pho,
my God.
Yeah.
You ate all that. I was so worried about you making weight, and you just dropped it all off.
Yeah, I was 67 on that week.
Scared me. I was on the phone with his. I skipped a day to visit some family right outside of DC, a couple hours. And I was on the phone with William McLaughlin. I was like, dude, you got to get him under control. Like, he's eating all the sodium. Like, he's not gonna. I was like, I had all this anxiety. That was a big one. When you had the Rosa fight, that was a big one because Rosa had a lot of hype on his ground game at that point, and he was really hyped up. And so I was really interested to see that dynamic. And then it was just such a one-sided fight. You landed a few twisters, just we didn't get the finish from that, but that was like a great milestone. And that's when you got the camo shorts, so that bled into that.
That's right.
And then, for another big one for me, like there's all these milestones, like the Andre Fili fight. The Andre Fili was the fight where I felt like that was the fight that was going to break Bryce into, like,
that made me a man, bro. Dude, that fight made me a man. I broke my hand in the second round. He busted my face open, and I just remember being in a lot of pain that fight, and just questioning myself, but then at the same time just thinking it don't matter, just keep fighting. And I never thought that I was out of the fight, but
you were winning the fight.
I was concerned though, because I knew something was wrong with that hand. My left is my power hand, so that, like I said, that fight made me a man.
Yeah. I became a fan of Fili's studying his film for that fight, and I knew that was a fight that was going to be a breakout one for you, and then it was. And then there was the Edson Barboza fight, and I remember telling Dean Thomas, I was like,
it's going through the greatest hits of Bryce Mitchell's career here. Remember that fight? This is like the Chris Farley sketch from SNL. Remember the Andre Fili fight? That was so cool.
He's going to outstrike him. I said that about the Fili fight as well, and he did, and that means a lot that you did that. And then the Edson Barboza fight was just an amazing one. So, like, all of these different things that were happening in your career, and then to see you at the inauguration, like get invited up there. Just like you say, like you've been blessed, and it's also a result of you just being authentically yourself. Anyways, I'm super, super excited about the fact that you got to be there. Like, that's just insane.
So one really cool part was that, so there was 2 balls that we went to. One was in Union Station. That was my more favorite one, where I met Mike Tyson, Vince Vaughn, Tony. I really loved that. But the food was actually better at the first ball that I went to. They served all you can eat mussels and oysters and shrimp.
Oh,
bro, I went in. I sat by that damn mussel line.
I know you murdered it. I know.
You just plate after plate after plate of mussels. I ain't never in my whole life had all you can eat mussels. I mean, I was beside myself, man. I loved it.
Amazing. Well,
that's great. Tell us about the inauguration. Ate a lot of mussels. Gotcha. Although, to be fair, that does sound amazing. All you can eat mussels would be pretty goddamn awesome.
What are we're gonna talk about Mount Sinai? Am I saying that correctly?
Absolutely, Mount Sinai. That's right. So what we're gonna focus on here for just a little bit is things in the Bible that a non-believer needs to see. If you do not believe that this Bible is true word for word, I want to show you some stuff, and I want to start out by showing you what I believe is Mount Sinai. It's a picture of a mountain over there in the Middle East. Basically, in the Bible, Moses goes up to the top of this mountain, and God sets it ablaze. And this mountain burns and burns and burns, possibly for 40 days, I believe it is. I've also been hitting the head a lot, so if I get my days mixed up or whatever, the mountaintop burns, okay? Let me show you the top of this mountain over here that I believe is Mount Sinai. And when you look at this, guys, which me and Roli, we can't see it too good. We got Ghost Man pulling it up. That's it right there.
You can see it's
Ghost Man
charred at the top.
Charred, brother. And by the way, guys, Ghost Man's our camera guy, our electronic guy. What's the word I'm looking for?
IT.
Sure. Baby. A Ghost Man, we can't really say much about him. He's killed a lot of people. He don't really go out into town that much. He's just he's a crazy man.
Stays in the backwoods.
Stays in the backwoods, brother. And so Ghost Man, he knows his electronics, but he don't want to be talked about. He don't want to be seen. And so we call him Ghost Man. But Ghost Man's on a computer right now. He's pulled up a picture of what I believe is Mount Sinai talked about in the Bible. So what interests me more than anything is I want to hear, what does a non-believer say about this mountain? How does the top of a mountain stay intact but get perfectly charred? There's no trees around it to burn, and the rocks themselves are burnt, and it's a nice, crisp, straight angle of burn. It's not just like jagged burns. You can tell one top of the mountain was burnt and the bottom was not. So what kept that perfect line of symmetry for that burn to occur? Because if it ain't the story out of the Bible, brother, I don't know what it is.
Well, good question. I would like to know the answer to that. Let's see here. So, why is Mount Sinai? Darker at top. According to Dr. Fitz, the rocks are darkened because they are ancient Precambrian volcanic basalt, and the lighter rock below it is granite. Mount Sinai's distinct blackened peak. He writes that the change in color is due to the iron oxide inside the basalt and not because of any non-natural phenomenon. The rocks cannot be scorched because granite and basalt do not have the carbon necessary for combustion. Well, I mean, I guess Dr. Glenn Fritz is an agent of Satan, because these rocks do not have the chemical composition necessary for combustion. Geologist Dr. John Morris agrees that the darkened rocks in the Jabal al-Lawz range, including Jabal Makela, are normal metamorphic rock. He says the rocks are typical for northwestern Saudi Arabia because there are multiple volcanoes. A critic would point out that the Al-Hara basaltic volcanic field that he refers to is several hundred miles to the northeast of Jabal Makla. Said Makela before, Makla. So there you go. There have been multiple speculative theories that may reconcile the biblical account with the scientific data. Exactly. So you have to reconcile the Bible with speculative theories and the reality of the situation. So, all right. I mean, Bryce wouldn't say so, but perhaps we can call that one slightly debunked. I don't know. You draw your own conclusion.
And what is the story out of the Bible?
So Moses goes up to the top of Mount Sinai. This is an Exodus, I believe, which I need to read all of this, okay? I am not a Bible scholar. If I get something wrong, don't tell me I'm going to hell.
So you're not a Bible scholar, yet you think that it is the absolute literal word of God? I mean, that it's literal word for word, but you don't actually know all of what's in it. Come on, Bryce.
Okay, I'm trying to preach the gospel to people because I love them with all my heart, and that's what Jesus Christ commands us to do.
You don't even know what you're preaching then. What if the parts that you haven't read say something that is completely outside even, the scope of possibility or reality even for you?
And by the way, if you're going to read the Bible, we were talking about this earlier, I suggest you start in Genesis, read all of it. Then go to Revelation and read all of it. Then read some Gospels. And then read, I think perhaps the two most impactful books of the Bible are going to be Psalms and Proverbs. If you're like me and you want to feel something that just talks to you, Psalms and Proverbs, the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is what the Gospels are. The book of Acts, incredible. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and then Acts are incredible. But I started with Genesis and went to Revelation because it's kind of like cheating. It's like watching the beginning of the movie and then the end of the movie and then kind of grasping everything that's going to happen in between coming afterwards. That's how I like to read it. But some people like to start at Genesis, then go Exodus, Leviticus, just read it in order. That's not how my brain works, and that's not how I like to read it. So I suggest you read the Bible however you want. But personally, I went Genesis and Revelation. But anyways, this is an Exodus, which I have not read thoroughly, okay? Moses is leading the Israelites. Hey, Ghost Man, am I right about this?
You need to go to your producer to find out if you're actually correct about these things that you are confidently talking about. Good looks, Bryce. What is this internet hype of everyone knowing the true meaning of ancient texts? Yeah, no shit, Rage Quit. Everybody is an expert here because really what it is that Bryce has read as much as he has read and gotten the information from a bunch of other people who have read and interpreted this book a number of ways to the point of the information matching what he wants to believe that it represents. So good enough understanding of what he thinks is being presented in this book. So my worldview has been shaped by reading a book a little bit and a couple of other people telling me the things that they took out of that same book. This is like if I read The Shining, but skipped a couple of chapters and then watched a YouTube video that you did about The Shining and all of why it's the best movie of all time. And then from that, I go out and say, every person needs to read The Shining, watch the movie. There's no wrong way to read The Shining, but it's the absolute literal word of God. I mean, maybe this is making sense to some people. Is it rooted in knowing your past? No. Is it rooted in know your past, know your future? You don't get it? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's whatever they want it to be. It's whatever. It's malleable. It's whatever you want to apply it to. So, if I want it to say X, Y, and Z, I can find a verse and take it, bend it however it needs to be bent, regardless of how far a stretch that is. Sometimes they need to bend these things like bamboo, but nevertheless, it will bend, not break. And eventually you get whatever it is that they want to be said. That's how it works, as far as I can tell.
Ghostman knows the Bible, bro. Like, he's read it multiple times. All right.
Oh, the crazy shadowy figure who doesn't go into town very often and has killed people is the actual Bible scholar. All right, good to know.
So I'm right. Ghostman said so. Moses is leading the Israelites. They've turned to false gods, bro. They're worshiping a golden calf. Like, they're worshiping objects. That's how lost these people are. They're literally bowing down on their knees. And, oh, hell, the golden calf.
Is it possible that the golden calf is a parable or a symbol where they're not actually worshiping a golden calf, but they're worshiping gold, and they're worshiping like money, and that's what they're worshiping, and it's not literally like that they're worshiping a physical idol? And this is just a question. Like,
this is the best explanation I've heard for calf worship, which is very popular in India. Is that the people eat the mushrooms that grows out of the cow manure?
That's right.
And then they think that the cow is God, the vessel to God. That's my best explanation. But Roli, I don't think that it had anything to do with money. They didn't have a lot of money. These people were roaming around in the wilderness. They were just desperate.
If it's a golden
calf. That's true. That's true. It could. But let me tell you something about humanity. We worship things. We were designed by a creator to worship. And if you do not worship God, you'll worship libertarianism. You'll worship Donald Trump. You'll worship your wife. Oh, you're bad off if you start worshiping a woman. You're going to get whooped around, boy.
I think you're right that we are
designed to worship.
There's a good chance that's true. But
we're designed to worship. So if you don't worship God, you will worship some other thing. I mean, where is the line drawn in that? I mean, to have definitive focuses makes it worship because you say so? How do you define worship then? Because I don't believe in God, but so obviously then I worship something else. What is it that I worship then? And how do you define that? Because worship to me has a very strict set of parameters that I don't think that I'm following, but apparently you do. So why don't you continue to tell me the things that I'm doing? It seems that a lot of this version of Christianity is based on getting up in other people's business. And that's a big thing that I don't like about it. Why don't you mind your own fucking business? Oh, you worship your work. You worship X, Y, and Z. I don't do any of that shit. And I don't appreciate you saying it. So keep your shit to yourself, worshiper. I don't care what you're worshiping. Leave me the fuck alone.
Peter, and I steal this from Peterson, but it's like whatever it is that you put your focus in, like that's your God.
That's your God.
And so if it's your ego, if it's money, if it's power, if it's your career, if you're tied up and all that. So
that's all tools of the devil. The devil will use anything he can to get you away from God. And
tools of the devil. Why is it bad to worship those things? If a person so chose to do so. Like if that was a literal interpretation of it and this person was like, well, I could worship your God, but I choose to worship whatever, my work or my ego or whatever. Who are you to say that they're wrong? Well, I guess the Bible says that. Again, this is a whole lot of overstepping your boundaries and sticking your nose where it does not belong. It is not your place to tell anyone else how to live their life. So yeah, he's saying, oh, you worship libertarianism. Libertarian philosophy is a set of tenets that I would rather worship than an unprovable deity. And your basaltic rock mountain certainly didn't do anything to sway me towards the legitimacy and concrete reality of this book you like a lot. Imagine worshiping something that provides meat, milk, and leather when that was hard to get. Pure evil. Yeah, exactly. I mean, but there you go. Cows are the devil, because Satan says that, if you're not worshiping God, then you're evil. Pure evil indeed. So, yeah, the worship of that cow, really bad stuff. Yeah, who's to say that the golden cow worshippers weren't the actual right ones? They got pulled back into this dumb shit that Moses was saying. I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, it none of it really makes sense. It's all a big make 'em up. It's what it really comes down to.
In this case, it was a golden calf. So we don't know what it was. Moses gets told by God to go to this top of this mountain. He's going to give him commandments, and he sets the mountain ablaze so that the people down at the bottom of the mountain know, hey, that's not natural. This is God working, and he's allowing Moses to go up here. I believe this is where he gives him the 10 Commandments on 2 tablets. Is that right, Ghostman? Believe. Yes, that's right. That's right. And so,
well, it was originally 3 tablets. If you've ever seen a Mel Brooks movie, just putting that out there.
So, when Mount Sinai is burning for 40 days, Moses receives the 10 Commandments on 2 tablets, comes back down, tells the Israelites, hey, God spoke to me on that mountain. And of course, he's just come down from a burning mountain for 40 days. Are you going to...
It was volcanic rock. The mountain was formed by volcanic rock. Science. The enemy of religion.
Going to argue with them? I'm not. Mm-hmm. And all the people there, all the people that saw it, okay, they didn't argue with them. They went back to worshiping the true God. And so you can disagree with the story, but you can't disagree with that mountain being burned at the top. That mountain's burnt. How did it get burnt?
It's not. Well, technically it is. It was burnt by magma. It was burnt by the bowels of the earth, dude. Like, this dude really thinks that, like, God himself, like, stuck his finger down from the clouds like Monty Python and just set the mountaintop on fire. A quick Google search debunked it. I guess that's not valid.
Well, I believe that the Bible is word for word literally correct. And I'm
There's your problem.
Interested in seeing what Roli has to say, because I know his thoughts are the same as a lot of people who do not believe the literal story of the Bible.
Well, so there's a lot of wild things on this planet, right? I mean, we do have fossils from the ocean on mountains, and so we know that.
Well, that's because of the please say that one more time for people who didn't catch that. Where are the fossils?
On top of mountains.
That's because of Noah's flood, brother. Every mountain was covered by 20 cubits of water.
Well, it also could be because, like, water used to be in the Grand Canyon. I don't know if that was from the flood or not, right? Like, that's like, but there's a so that's one example, and there's a story in the Bible to explain it. And so when you find a burnt mountain, when you find something like that, it doesn't immediately make me go, okay, well, because it's referenced in the Bible, that's the cause and effect of the situation. Right. It's also very possible that people came up upon the mountain and it was burnt when they found it, and they came up. That's a great question.
What burnt it with?
Google it. Get the ghost man to Google it. We found it in 2 seconds. It took less than 5 minutes to get the answer to this question. You only have one question towards the Bible and have not gotten an answer yet. What's the question? Oh, okay. Whatever happened to Barabbas after his release? I'm not too familiar. I know the name. Is Barabbas is the one who sold Jesus out? Is that right? I honestly don't. Well, I mean, quick little side quest here. What happened to Barabbas after? Oh, I guess he was pardoned. So, okay. The Bible and other sources don't provide much information about what happened to Barabbas after he was released from prison. Some believe he converted to Christianity, while others think he continued a life of crime. So there you go. There is no answer. Ask Bryce. Ask Bryce what his answer is. The Bible is is literal, except there's a glaring plot hole in it apparently. According to one tradition, on the day he was released, he went to Golgotha and watched Jesus die on the cross. All right, there's a whole fucking mess of stuff over here anyway. But so there you go. There's the short answer, is that there is no answer. Again, plot hole.
With that perfectly straight line. And how did it
It's not perfectly straight.
You know, and at some point, Roli, it is illogical to believe a story that we can't prove.
Yeah, you're right, Bryce. Listen to yourself.
At some point, though, there is so much proof that it becomes illogical to not believe the eyewitness testimonies that were there. When you're talking to a private detective, which I have seen interviews of private detectives, what is the number one most valuable piece of information a private detective can get? Where's his number one source of information?
I don't know.
It's going to be eyewitness testimonies, people that was there at the crime. Now, if they're proven untrustworthy, that goes out the window. But if that person has no ulterior motive, and after time after time after time, they never change their story for, say, 2,000 years, and then evidence after evidence after evidence backs up that eyewitness testimony, as a private detective, you have to say this person is true. They are valid. Something happened here, and I choose to believe them because they are the most trustworthy source of information I have access to.
So what's the ulterior motive of the doctors that we were just talking about when it comes to the basaltic rock on the mountain? Just being anti your belief? What's their ulterior motive? They're scientists. Their motive is verifiable truth. Your motive is stories that have been passed from person to person. Anecdotal proof. That's really what it is. You're basically saying that you're basically saying that a very long game of anecdotal telephone is your verifiable proof, and that's what needs to be believed, as opposed to empirical scientific data that we easily found with a Google search.
So when you talk about shark teeth being at the top of mountains, shark teeth being in Arkansas, you know, when I was in 5th grade, you know what we done in our school? Dig up shark teeth. How'd they get there? Well, I don't know, but there's this book called the Book of Genesis that says that the whole world was flooded underwater. Perhaps that could be how the sharks got in the middle of Arkansas.
Well, let's see. Why are there shark teeth in Arkansas? Shark teeth are found in Arkansas because the state was once covered by a shallow sea where sharks were abundant. Shark teeth were preserved in the sea floor where conditions were ideal for preservation. So what happened to that shallow sea? Oh, okay. This is an institute of creation. There we go. How about this one? Arkansas was covered by a shallow sea about 320 million years ago when sharks were the dominant fish. Yeah, so I mean, I wonder what happened to the to that shallow sea, but I mean, doesn't necessarily lead one to believe that it was because of the flood if it was the sea. I mean, like that goes back to like Pangea and all that stuff. I mean, there are any number of scientific reasons for all of this stuff. Realize what's up? Yeah, plate tectonics, exactly. For the tops of mountains. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, that's what I was saying about like Pangea and all that. I mean, like, you know, over a very, very long amount of time, the continental shifts and shelving and stuff will move and change and alter and stuff. I mean, in reality, the Earth is continuing to do that from what I understand, right? I mean, it's not stagnant. That's why we still have earthquakes and stuff like that. The tectonic plates moving slightly. The Earth is continuing to evolve. You know, it's a slow process, but it happens. And has continued to happen and will continue to happen. But no, there's a Bible that says otherwise. Why do you have the imagination song from South Park in your head right now? Yeah, exactly. That is accurate.
You know, and at some point there's so much overwhelming evidence that you
overwhelming
say, hey,
evidence.
There is validity in this book right here that has not changed a word for 2,000 plus years.
That is absolute bullshit, though. The Bible has changed many, many times. How many versions of the Bible are there? There are over 450 known versions of the Bible. Does a most accurate Bible translation exist? If you have to ask if a most accurate version of your book exists at all, I think that pretty much says all that you need to know. With each new language and cultural context, scholars and theologians have worked tirelessly to ensure the ancient text remains accessible, accurate, and meaningful for every generation. So what you're saying is that the Bible has changed. I mean, this is this is not hard stuff to have counter arguments for. But this is the thing. This is what I talk about in the video that I made about Bryce and the Hitler comments, is that most people do not want to sit and have these conversations. Like, there are probably like secular humanists and like atheists and stuff like a Richard Dawkins type is probably going to want to like debate this. But the average person doesn't want to sit here and have to have this conversation. If I was in a room with Bryce and he was telling me this stuff, I would want to get out of the conversation as quickly as possible because I don't care about your dumb shit. And because of that, that's why it propagates. Because either you have people like Roli over here who are willing to indulge this nonsense, or you have people who say, I'm throwing my hands up with this, I'm not going to deal with it, and walk away. Yep. When plates touch, one is forced down into the mantle, and the other side is forced upward, creating mountain ranges. Yeah, exactly. Right. It's all scientifically verifiable stuff. About like the Marianas Trench, you know? Again, the world is constantly in a state of change, always. But we're supposed to believe this 2,000-year-old book that has been reworked and updated and changed 450 times. It's the word of God, people.
And so Mount Sinai.
Okay, but
very hard to explain.
Yeah, and
if
I don't have an
It's
I'm
not.
not like as I try
It's not hard.
Okay, like how could it happen? Well, if
Right.
it was a volcano, we would know a volcano was there. There would be a crater.
Wow, Roli, you just fucking hit the nail on the head. What a genius. He really is Brainiac. He didn't even have to use Google and he just figured it out. Good Lord.
Right?
It wouldn't
And
be
so
symmetrical. Yeah,
if,
there'd be a crater.
It's not
like
symmetrical.
maybe,
What made those straight
a
burn marks?
Maybe a bunch of like broken meteors flew through, and like the way they hit them, hit the top of the mountain, and there was just
left the tip intact. And by the way, where's your evidence? Because now we're basing everything off of evidence. Where's your evidence of a meteor ever hitting the earth and burning something?
Yeah, I don't have any.
There ain't none. So now to prove that something that is definitely true, true, we're making up stories about meteors.
No, there is one though where that giant flood runs down somewhere in the western part of the nation, and there's basically like when you dig down, there's a layer of burnt ground because some meteor hit, and then all these ice caps melted and everything just flooded down. I don't remember the name of it.
I would like to see that, because I personally stopped believing in meteors, asteroids, comets, all that stuff. I do believe in heavenly bodies up in the stars, but as far as a meteor hitting the earth and wiping out the dinosaurs 65 million years ago, I know that's a lie from hell. The earth ain't 65 million years old. The earth is 6,000 years old just because the Bible says so.
Where have meteors hit Earth? Chicxulub, Mexico. Barringer Crater in Arizona. Sudbury Basin in Canada. Vredefort, South Africa. Manicurigan Crater. Poppy Crater in Siberia. Chesapeake Bay, Virginia. Kara Crater, Russia. I mean, you can believe or not believe about the one that wiped out the dinosaurs. I guess that is still speculative, but that's a whole lot of meteors hitting the Earth. Nope, none of those are true because they are not in the Bible. How did Roli get from the actual answer to meteors? Yeah, that because that's the funny thing though is he just stumbled upon the right answer. He's just kind of like going through somewhat logical things and happened upon the right one. But that's the point, is that like there is a much more rational explanation for it. But Bryce is not having it. Or any of those other meteors. Oh my God. 6,000 years because the Bible says so.
You take that science and go to hell with it, because it is
there you have it
from the devil.
There you go. I mean, I think that is about as plain as the nose on your face as to why you're never getting through to a person like Bryce. Take all your science and go to hell with it, because it's not in the Bible. End of story. End of discussion.
What do you say to the Christians that have a belief in both? Like there's, because timing was different in biblical days. Days were different. They didn't time them from 12 a.m. to the next 24 hours. Yeah. And they would say a day, and it didn't quite mean a day like it does to us. So how do you reconcile that there's so many Christians that don't take the literal days of the Bible, count them backwards, and say it's 6,000 years old?
So to those Christians, I want to say you need to read your Bible. You need to understand that it is literally true, word for word. And when it talks about the genealogies and tells that every descendant up to Adam and lists their age exactly in years, you need to understand that anything other than that is false. And that Adam, the first man ever created, was about 6,000 years ago. And there is no evidence of anything that is older than 6,000 plus years old. Okay, because the world was not in existence then. 65 million years ago. These people tell me that dinosaurs walked around 65 million years ago.
I was going to ask about dinosaurs.
65 million. And they won't tell me I'm a dummy because I think that the world is 6,000 to 10,000 years old. No, the Bible is literally true.
So, did I just hear correctly? Hold on, let me run that back real quick.
65 million years ago, that is false. And the Adam, the first man ever created, was about 6,000 years ago. And there is no evidence of anything that is older than 6,000 plus years old. Okay, because the world was not in existence then. 65 million years ago. These people tell me that dinosaurs walked around 65 million years ago. They can't count to 65 million. And they won't tell me I'm a dummy because I think that the world is 6,000 to 10,000 years old.
He really did just say that his reasoning for the world not being 65 million years old is because the people who believe that can't count to 65 million. That is, I thought I was gobsmacked by the Hitler comments. That is some galaxy brain logic right there. You can't count to that number, so it's not true. And I think Mr. Beast, like one of his earliest videos was him counting to like 100,000, so maybe he could count to 65 million if he really set his mind to it, Bryce. Debunked with facts and logic. If you're lucky enough to reach that point of education that you realize how little you know personally and as a species, which is why a little education is so dangerous. Yeah, A. You are very, very true on that one. Realize that is absolutely true. It's I think that is one of the reasons why I approach the life the way that I do, is from the understanding that I don't know everything and I don't have all of the answers. I have as much verifiable information as there is to know based on what I have absorbed. I am certainly willing to have my perception altered if you have better verifiable information. That, I think, is one of the biggest unfortunate aspects of a lot of people in general, is that they are so locked into their viewpoint that they won't change it for anything. This goes back to the George W. Bush election when he was running against John Kerry. It's probably before a couple year time here, but this is when I was in high school. John Kerry was running against George W. Bush, and one of the big talking points that George Bush had in that race for the presidency was that John Kerry was a flip-flopper. That was the term that was going around a whole bunch, that John Kerry believed one thing, and then he changed his mind, and now he believes another thing. And I remember thinking, even back then, and I was a pretty conservative kid, amazing as that may be. I was pretty, 9/11 had happened. I was very patriotic. I actually wanted to go and enlist in the military back then. I was too young for it, and thank God that worked out the way that it did. All the needless deaths that we've had since then, based on the same type of patriotic fervor that I had as a young person, but that's another story. But anyway, the whole flip-flopping issue, I remember thinking back then, what is so bad about John Kerry changing his point of view on something? He thought one thing, got different, hopefully better information, and then changed his point of view. I would think that would be something that you should encourage. If you get better, verifiable information, have your mind changed. I try to live by that. If you can prove to me something that changes the fundamental understanding that I have of any topic, I will then change my thinking. A book that was written 2,000 years ago that takes nothing of modern existence into consideration, that has been passed from individual person to individual person, retranslated, 450 versions of it have been disseminated into the world, does not cut the mustard as far as verifiable fact to me. All adds up. Yeah, the 65 million years all adds up. Yeah, exactly. He really proved it right there. Was Bryce homeschooled? No, he was internet schooled.
No, the Bible is literally true, word for word.
I have something that I think is
Sorry to
And
interrupt you.
well, I want to say why they believe that, Roli. The Christians that believe that the earth is billions of years old, they all have one thing in common. They
Satan.
all went to public schools, and the devil runs the public schools. My child will not fall victim to the devil. My child ain't going to be gay. My child ain't going to be anything other than a child of God. My child is not going to be corrupted by this public education system that is under control of the devil. The devil has taken God out of our school system. It's illegal to go in there and preach the Bible, the most historically accurate, popular document of all time. You know what the number one book of all time is?
Yeah.
The Bible. Do you think it's funny that the Quran ain't the number one selling book of all time?
Uh-oh.
Do you think it's funny that Buddha's book ain't the number one selling book of all time? The number one selling book of all time was made by my Father who art in heaven, Jesus Christ. He reigns victorious. He always will be. This Bible's going to reign over Joe Rogan's podcast, over Jordan Peterson's podcast. It's going to reign over all the books that you like to read. Charlotte's Web ain't going to outsell it. There is nothing that will ever outsell this holy document. And you atheist,
Dunked on Joe Rogan, dunked on Charlotte's Web. And I love that too, that's the metric. It's the most best-selling book of all time. Factual. It's got to be. A whole bunch of people bought it.
You better start believing it, buddy, because the day of reckoning is coming. I'm just telling you right now. You better understand this book is true, and we better put it back in our children's education. If you take this away from your child, you are leading them to the grasp of the devil, and they will lead to destruction.
You know what I would like to say to this? I want to be led to destruction, Bryce. I don't care about salvation. You know why? Because if an eternity with people like you is on the other side of salvation, I want no part of it. I will gladly burn in the fires of hell. I will gladly spend an eternity in the rivers of fire if it means never having to listen to you. Oh, good Lord. Roli just took a good breath there. Yeah, exactly. He's having to sit here listening to this fucking blowhard going on about how many more copies of the Bible have sold as opposed to copies of one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish.
And you want to ask me why my child is going to be blessed? Because this Bible said so. I wrote it right.
The Bible said that Bryce Mitchell's kid specifically is going to be blessed, everybody. We can all go home.
There on this wall. It says a man who walks...
He's got a lot of Bible verses on his wall.
Proverbs 27. The just man walketh in his integrity. His children will be blessed after him. That's how I know my child will be blessed. Because I'm a just man and I walk in my integrity. And this book says my children will be blessed. So they will be. And anybody who believes, oh, the world is 100 million years old, 50 billion years old, you have been tricked. Stephen Hawking ain't a scientist. Neil deGrasse Tyson ain't a scientist. These people hate you and want you to go to hell, and most of them worship the devil.
Damn. Shots fired at Neil deGrasse Tyson and Stephen Hawking. People who devoted their lives to science, but no, they're actually just devoting their lives to evil. Shit. Well, Bryce, I read a book that said something entirely different. I read a book that said you're not a just man. So what do you say to that? My book is real. Checkmate, bitch. I read Green Eggs and Ham. Motherfucker, Sam I Am is my God. I worship at the altar of the almighty Dr. Seuss, bitch. Dr. Seuss trumps your teachings. My man. Sorry. Sorry to say. So, rip Bryce Mitchell and his belief system because I read Horton Hears a Who. I've read the entire catalog of the one true God, Dr. Seuss. Judgment Day is upon us, and it will come in the form of Yertle the Turtle. The Lorax, bitch.
And that's my explanation, Roli.
I have one, and I can't defend carbon dating because I don't understand.
Because it's a load of nonsense.
Well,
and it's meant to
of
where
course
you can't
it is.
understand it. Can you explain gravity, Roli?
Here's
No, because gravity don't exist. It's a made up.
Gravity don't exist. Gravity is made up. Gravity is made up. Let's see. Explain gravity. Gravity is a fundamental force in the universe that pulls all objects with mass towards each other. Looks like there's some verifiable information here. I don't know. Oh, but no, it comes from NASA, though. We know that NASA is an organization that is satanic.
Carbon dating, made up. Gravity, made up.
Carbon dating, made up.
Made up. 65 million years ago, there was a meteor wiped out the dinosaurs. Made up.
Well, I am not on board with that, but I will say,
Thank you, Roli.
When I look at the map, and I'm thinking of like Pangea, and I'm thinking of how everything fits together into one piece, and then I'm thinking about, well, I've been alive for 43 years, and like things aren't really moving away from each other. They say California is going to break off. That can't happen soon enough, but it's supposed to break off into the ocean. Like when I'm looking at that, it's like, man, I can't help but think you're not right on the 6,000 years.
Yeah, so there you go. He's pushing back on the 6,000 years.
I think all
thing.
that stuff was together a long, long time ago. I can't help but think the platelets do slowly push the mountains out of the ground. And I think your literal interpretation of the date of the Earth, I think it's going to require much more evidence than just trying to do some. And I'm not saying, well, you're not a scientist, but some pseudoscience on like some limestone deposit that imitates
I think it's pronounced
something.
Pseudo,
yeah.
Yeah, that's all right, man.
I'm gonna do a lot of those on here.
Oh,
I talk.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Nice. Bryce being pedantic. That's. Gravity doesn't exist, but he knows how to pronounce pseudo. I don't think people have Charlotte's Web in every bathroom. I agree with Bryce. Yeah. Fair. Good point. It's a good point. You don't see a copy of the Latchkey Kids in every hotel room in America. That is true. Mr. Rage quit with the Stephen Hawking's equation. I feel you, bro. It all makes sense. It all makes sense. I mean, if Bryce can bend everything to his will, then your equation makes perfect sense. Multiply the S by the T, evens out H multiplied into the AX2, WKI to the nth power. Hail Satan. Bryce would love Animal Farm. Yeah, Bryce would benefit from reading any other book besides the Bible, but it's not going to happen.
Talk about as bad as you spell. But
I spell bad on purpose.
But yeah, so that's a tough one for me to jump on board with. But it's just for me. Again, I don't think that the days were the same in those days, and I think they counted years differently. But also, when you read things in the Bible, like it's easier for a camel to walk through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to go to heaven.
Allegory, yeah.
They're not really talking about a camel walking through an eye of a needle. The eye of the needle is like a low doorway, and so like there I think there's room for misinterpretation, and I don't think
See, the problem here is that Roli is just on the cusp of pushing back on these things, but he's too nice a guy to actually get into it with Bryce. And again, that is why Bryce has gotten to where he is, because either you have people like this who are like, I don't really believe it all that much, but I mean, I'll allow it. I take bits and pieces, blah, blah, blah. Or you have people who just throw their hands up with this whole shit altogether and walk away. So it perpetuates because of that. You have reinforcement. This is exactly what I said in the video. You have people who reinforce, which are basically like Roli and to Bryce's side. You know, if you're looking at it on a spectrum, it's like you've got Bryce over here, people like Roli and over to Bryce's side are in there. And then on the other side of the spectrum is like people who would push back, but they're so far to the other side, they're not crossing over into Bryce's territory. And that's why this echo chamber forms.
I don't think the Earth's 6,000 years old. Let me just say that.
There is room for misinterpretation and taking things out of context. But when it says Adam lived this long and had a son, and his son lived this long, and then his son lived this long, and his son lived this long, and then it goes to King David, then it goes to Jesus.
7 days, bro. Like
you're talking about the first 7 days of creation.
Yeah, referencing that as a literal 7 days.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, so it doesn't.
The genealogy.
Well, wait a second, then, Bryce. Wait a second. You don't know about that? All of a sudden, there are questionable things. Where's the selectiveness? I thought everything was literal and to be taken as fact. I don't know about that. You're talking yourself into circles there, pal.
The genealogy, is literal.
But even in the Bible, the Earth was here before Adam was here, and so the time. That's
right. You make a great point. We don't know how long the Earth was here before Adam. I personally think it was something about like days, because that's what the Bible says. But the days could have been years. It could have been poetry. But see, that's how I am. I'm a Baptist, and one of the tenets of Baptists is they tend to take the text literally, and that's what I like to do. And if the Bible said, "Hey, the Earth was made in 7 days or 6 days," I believe it.
I just my take on it, which is worth about as much energy as
it's worth a lot to me.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It is that
but it's not. But it's really not. It's only the only value that you're ascribing to his viewpoint is as a person who is malleable enough to take on your viewpoint. Like, you're being disingenuous by saying that, Bryce. Like, that's absolutely something that is a legitimate criticism here. Like, don't placate Roli in saying that you value his view, because you don't. All you value in this person is a person who is willing to sit here and listen to your shit to the point where maybe I'll get him. Maybe I'll take more of his beliefs and supplant them with my own. That's all that you're doing. So your friendship is invalid. Your friendship is motivated with underlying drive that is antithetical to being a true friend. Hate to break it to you.
The Bible's not meant to be like a science textbook. It's meant to. It has an agenda. It has a story that it wants to tell, and it's the joining of many different books that tell a story, and there's really important things in there, like love your neighbor, not judging,
absolutely,
and the parables, and a lot of the other Abrahamic books as well. So I don't really, personally, I'm not super concerned with that, because I already believe in intelligent design. So whether or not evolution goes hand in hand with the spark that started it all and this and that,
evolution is a.
How did Roli come to the concept of intelligent design, even within the framework of taking mushrooms? That is the story I'd really like to hear, because Roli is the only voice of reason in this conversation, and yet he believes in intelligent design. So where did that come from for him? I'd really like to know that. That's the story that maybe on episode 2, we might have to make this a regular installment if they keep doing this podcast, because I don't know. I'm having a good time with this. It's fascinating. Roli is one of Bryce's coaches. Hard to believe he didn't understand how the Hitler thing would play out. Yeah, I mean, well, I think that he was kind of blindsided by that. I don't think that he knew that was going to be something that was going to come into play. In fact, I would say that I highly doubt that he knew that was coming. Bryce is a little bit of a loose cannon if you haven't got that impression already.
The life from hell, and it has nothing to do with the Bible. It's
there are
anti-Bible.
types of evolution. Now, to say that we came from a single cell is a tough pill to swallow. I agree with you.
It takes more faith to say that we came from a single cell organism. There's actually there's nothing past.
I agree with you.
There's not three cell organisms. There's not 4 cell organisms. There's not 5 cell organisms. It goes from like single to us.
I'm with you, and I think I think.
So my question with that, because this kind of gets into like medical territory, is that why ever go to a hospital? Why ever partake in the science that led to the technology that enables healthcare in the modern age? Why doesn't the good Lord, if you are a devout and abiding member of his flock, just heal you with the power of your devotion to God? Or why even accept medical treatment if it's God's will that you're sick or infirmed or injured? I mean, if all of the medical science that has allowed us to get to the point, and this is very personal to me because, I went through some really, really traumatic health situations not too long ago, very recently. In fact, you always see me drinking out of this cup. This came from the hospital that I was a guest in for quite a while. I'm very lucky to be alive based on the medical advancements that we have in the modern age. Why didn't God just do all that for me? Why did God let me get sick in the first place? Anyway.
Nowadays, like this whole, and like my generation, and maybe people a little younger than me, and I'm a little older than you, like we had this idea that science debunked religion, and that was kind of how it was. I feel like that's how it was sold to us. Nobody implicitly said that, but that was kind of like
that was the point of taking God out of the school, is to try to tell you that science is the new God. That this all leads up to Revelation, which there's gonna, and Roli, you mark my words, because I know what's gonna happen. Because the Bible tells me it's all leading up to the mark of the beast. It's all going to convince people there's no God, so that the world is primed for that Antichrist. People do not believe in God. They don't care about God. They don't believe in souls. So when the Antichrist says, put this mark on your head, or I'm going to cut your head off, they just say, hey, I'll put the mark on my head, and they don't care.
I want to tell you a story that.
When is this going to happen? Can this just already happen if this is going to happen? How long is it going to take? They have no definitive answer for this. It's like all of those doomsday cults that said, the world is going to end on October 14th, 2012 or whatever the fuck. It's like, then it just doesn't happen. And we're back to square one. If this is going to happen, if this Left Behind shit is really going to come down, let's go already. Quit holding this shit over our heads. Because Bryce Mitchell is going to live and die, and none of this shit is going to happen. And what about all the people who have already lived and died before this Antichrist situation comes to be? Like, they're just judged on a different set of standards. Like, they don't have to have that grand reckoning. Like, they're just some of the lucky ones, I guess. A lot of luck involved in this equation. You're having a fantastic time with it. Thanks for hey, brother. Appreciate you being here. You mean uploading the podcast with that in it? Yeah, that was a point that someone else who I heard talking about this very situation made. They were like, this is a pre-recorded podcast that was edited and put out. Like, this is not aired live. So yeah, you are correct there. Realize that is an interesting element of this. Maybe Roli didn't have any real say in that part of it, or maybe he did behind the scenes and was just like, oh man, what I'm getting, and no disrespect to Roli, but what it seems like to me is that he's a a generally decent person, but a bit of a pushover is kind of what I'm getting at, or what I'm gathering from the way that he's interacting with Bryce. And I mean, look, I understand being put into that position with a person like Bryce, because you just don't want to be the person who's going to be like yelling at this guy to the point that you're shouting at each other. And it's just like, why are we even having this conversation? I'm just going to throw my hands up and leave. So it's like, you want to be affable. You want to be conversational and get by with this person who you otherwise consider a friend. You just have a friend who has some nutty ass beliefs. So I get that, but that does, I guess, kind of end up being how it manifests itself, is that you come off as a little bit of a pushover, and he might not have had any say in this thing being uploaded in general. You would have thought that maybe Bryce would have gone back and thought, wow, perhaps I should not say these things about Da Fuhrer. But no, of course Bryce is not going to think that. So, yeah, I get your point. Great stream. Hey, thank you very much for sticking it out with me, man. I appreciate it, because this has been a quite a long endeavor here, but we're coming into the home stretch. We're in the last third now, and the moment we're all waiting for is probably just around the corner here.
Is kind of relevant to that. One thing that I'm embarrassed of is that for my perceived social pressure, that I shut my gym down for a couple of weeks during COVID. And I wouldn't be embarrassed of it if I really thought that COVID was a danger to people in the gym. But I conformed and shut my gym down because I thought it was a strategic move, and I played right into the game. And
all right, so maybe Roli's a little off himself then. Like COVID killed a lot of people. There are people who are still dealing with COVID. Like, I don't, that's one of these things too that I really don't understand how it like became what it became. Now, I do acknowledge that there were some people in power that were using COVID in a way that was like overstepping authority. I get that. And the libertarian in me is like, yo, if you want people to die, you want to like be tacitly responsible. If you want to like secondhand have a little bit of blood on your hands for people contracting this virus in your presence, then that is somewhat you're right, I would say. But at the same time, it's like, this is legitimate stuff that you're seeing before your eyes. You're seeing a whole lot of people contracting this illness, and it affecting people in a very real way. But you just have decided that it's not that bad. So I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong with that. I always thought about with COVID that like if you look back to before COVID, there were things like the bird flu and swine flu and stuff like that. And there was a lot of footage back in the day of people in Japan and other Asian countries of them wearing the masks. And they got through those illnesses because they all adhered to the protocols. A lot of why it took so long for us to get over COVID is because we were not as steadfast in adhering to the protocols. So there is precedent for how you handle a situation like the one we were in. We just didn't do it because we're fucking Americans, and fuck you, I won't do what you tell me, right? So I don't know. They turn COVID into this like moral grandstanding type thing when it's like, if you would just think about it logically, then you could get over it a lot quicker, and it wouldn't have been such a like hill to die on. But you turn it into a hill to die on, and thus shit gets perpetuated the way that it was. I don't know. Maybe I don't understand it well enough. Maybe Bryce needs to enlighten me more. I'm completely off base. Probably the case.
And that's something that I try to live in a different way now, where it's like I try to be very deliberate about not playing the game, because we really don't have to. You don't play. You're batshit crazy. Like, you don't play the game, and your life is going swimmingly. You know what I'm saying?
It's the great thing about MMA. You can be as crazy as you want to be in this sport and still get by. That's why I love it. And I do acknowledge that he is absolutely correct. You have to find a lane to be able to exist in that capacity. MMA is a good one for that. But I guarantee you that if Bryce Mitchell was a social worker or fucking, I don't know, whatever, pick another job, an insurance salesman, he probably would have a lot more difficulty than he encounters in his current line of work.
And the people that are more authentic, like Jordan Peterson standing up for what he believed in the face of losing his tenure at the college he was working at. Like, he became famous and became somebody who spread so much great information to so many people like me who enjoy his speeches and lectures. The people that are Tucker Carlson, he's killing it now that he left, right?
Yep,
and
so the best thing he could have done is got fired from Fox.
So I just wanted to say that, like, when we're talking about, how did I even come into this bridge? What were you saying? I lost my train of thought.
Shoot, I can't remember either, bro. You know, I got a memory problem.
But I do. Somehow it came to that, like we do need to be authentic and do what we think is right, even in the face of
Mark of the Beast. I think is how
that's right. Okay, that's right.
You, if you don't have that Christian backbone, that saying to yourself, "I serve God, not man, and I do what God says." When that mark of the beast comes and everybody around you takes that mark of the beast, and then you see old Christian boy down the road get his head cut off, you're gonna succumb to the pressure if you do not have God in your heart. And I'm telling you, when you take that mark of the beast, your name is no longer in the book of life. The book of life is the book that Jesus reads as you enter to the gates of heaven. As you walk up to the gates of heaven, he pulls out a book, and if your name's not in the book, you don't go into heaven. You go to one of two places, brother. And I love you so much, bro. And I know that eventually I'm going to win you over with logic. You're a logical person.
I cannot wait to go to hell. Hell is going to welcome me with open arms, and I am going to go into the fiery afterlife skipping with a smile on my face. Fear-mongering? Yeah, absolutely. And what Roli is saying about, like, this authenticity and how Tucker Carlson is doing so great outside of Fox News and all this kind of stuff, it's like, yeah, you break off from the whatever these established outlets and start your own thing with people who also have these type of thoughts, and that's how it perpetuates as well. Bryce in the same boat with that as well. Again, you have to be somewhat fringe and have the ability to be fringe. And they're either in Bryce's position where he's in a line of work where he can be fringe inherently, or they have the Tucker Carlson route where you create the outlet yourself and find the audience that resonates with that message. And all of it's fine. I mean, again, when it's all speech, it's all fine. The thing that I worry about is when these types of people start becoming radicalized, because this is already pretty radical stuff in and of itself. And logical leaps say that people with this type of mentality can take that to a more dangerous place. But that is the risk that you run in a free society. So it is what it is. Got to let it happen. And got to stick by that as a principle, which I do. So let them talk. Let them have their platform. Let them say all the dumb shit that they want. And I am a firm believer that, this is also kind of comes from the nihilistic aspects of my beliefs, but I'm a firm believer that America, the world, humanity, we get what we ultimately want out of everything. Like, the world happens in a way that, like, is logical and has a lot of touch points to, like, go back and draw the map from. So, like, all of these things that I'm saying, like, it could lead to this place. Like, if it all happens that way, then it is the will of the world that it happens that way. So you just got to abide. Like, you just got to let it all happen. It's unfortunate that it may go one way that you don't like, but that is the will of the world. So it's going to play out how it's going to play out, and I'm going to be sitting here laughing at it until I can laugh no more.
And I'm trying to prove right now that you can, by logic and reason, prove that a God exists and that the Bible is the path to the God. Because
let me have a conversation with him. Come talk to me, God. I'll believe. That's what I mean, I think that's what a lot of non-believers say. It's like, if God wants me to believe in him, all he has to do is part the heavens and show his face. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, give me some legitimate, incontrovertible proof, and I'll believe. I'm open to it. I guess you could call me somewhat agnostic in that thought process. But until I am given that proof, then yeah, I don't believe. So there's a very easy fix to all of this. It never happens. And people like Bryce can, figure out all of these mental gymnastics and 4D chess to try to logic it into existence when there is no logic to be found. There's a real quick, easy, and simple logical way to make this all real. But it ain't real, so it don't happen.
Because it's the word of the God. And so, for example, Mount Sinai, okay, burnt to the top. Roli has no clue how it got burnt to the top, as anybody when you don't have the Bible. Anybody that don't believe the Bible, let me say this, has zero clue. Zero. Zero clue.
We just looked it up. It took less than 3 minutes.
How that mountain got burnt. If
basaltic
you Bible,
rock.
You know exactly how it got burnt.
Volcanic rock.
Okay, let's go on to another. The split rock, for example. The split rock also mentioned in Exodus. When Moses was leading these people in the wilderness, they were thirsting to death. These are the Israelites. They had just gotten out of slavery in Egypt. And, these people are thirsting to death. And, everybody's praying, God, give us water. And so God, who has chosen Moses to lead these people, which God also, he often chooses a leader. That's just how he works. And after Moses, it was Joshua. And after Joshua, it was the next guy and the next guy. But God chooses leaders to lead people because that's just how people work, But anyways, Moses struck that rock and prayed to God, and the rock split in half and water flowed from it, and everybody drank and everybody lived. So let's see that rock right there. And Roli, what's the best naturalistic explanation we have for that rock splitting? Because I personally believe that is the rock that Moses split.
Yeah, so that's that. I mean, I don't know. They say water erosion or something of that nature. I don't know.
It's a desert.
How that.
There you go. Yeah.
Where's the water?
It wasn't.
How did it just hit the middle of the rock?
It hasn't always been a desert.
Was it an Arab out there with the power washer for 200 million years, power washing the rock in half?
Well, the pyramids used to have like greenery all around it, and then
just get a little bell for all of the.
I believe that's,
but there's another rock.
Controversial terminology he uses.
Saudi Arabia that's split completely in half in a straight line. It's a very big rock, and so I don't have an answer for that one either.
And you know what?
Well, the answer is that Moses had 2 rocks. There's a whole lost book of the Bible that they don't tell you about. Moses and the second rock. There you go. Checkmate.
There's not a story in the Bible about that rock.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll humble myself too. That could be something natural. And I could be a fool for sitting here telling you that is the exact rock that Moses split. I just happen to think that it is. In conjunction with all this other evidence, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I'm just saying there is another rock. Because when I was searching that rock, split rock, right?
Multiple came up.
Well, most of them were that one. But then there was this other one, and they kind of like narrow at the base where it looks like some type of erosion, water erosion or something. But it's cut. Look at it there.
There
that's
you go.
Split rock. You can't see it really well, but that's split all the way through. And it looks
all
like
the way through, huh?
It looks like a straight line.
Right.
And it's like it looks like somebody put a whole skill saw through it, like a gigantic skill saw straight through it. So I don't have an answer for that one either. And I think there's a lot of things on this planet that are mysterious that we don't know how they built the pyramids.
How do you think they built the pyramids, bro? If you had to guess, you get one guess, because I'll tell you mine, and I don't know that I'm right.
think there was some. I know nothing about this, but there was some. I don't know how they cut.
Somebody should just clip that right there and have that be the intro to this show. Just Roli Delgado saying, I know nothing about this.
And I don't know how they spun the stuff, and they've done the research that it had to go so fast because they can count the grooves and the depth and whatever. Some type of technology with vibrations.
Yeah.
That's my guess, because
Very
everything's
plausible.
vibrations.
Yeah, very
right.
plausible.
And like, we're all just vibrations. There's
Like
sound vibrations.
Yeah.
Everything is in a wavelength that's vibrating. And that's all I know about it. But there's something with that where they could vibrate and it could glide over sand
That's
without
right.
much energy.
Yeah, if you take a pair of dice and you put them on top of a speaker, those dice are just going to float on that speaker at a certain frequency. You know what I mean? It's very plausible.
Yeah, that's the best idea I have. I don't like saying something like aliens did it, because
there's no proof of aliens.
Well, and that's like saying like the Big Bang happened, and like something came from nothing.
Big Bang is a big load of crap.
Well, there's a cool analogy that you would like, is where they say, like, you don't believe in the virgin birth, but you believe in the virgin Big Bang. Because there's nothing, right? Because there was no sex, there was no conception, and then there's a baby, so there's a virgin. So, but you believe in something came from nothing in this Big Bang, which
that's right, yeah.
So when you say that, like,
this part of the conversation, I think, does get at a lot of why people like Bryce exist, where it's like, as human beings, this actually goes back to the tweet that Connor put out, amazingly enough. Curious beings, human beings are inherently curious and have this innate and inherent desire to find meaning in this life that we have, and to latch on to reasoning that you can contextualize all of what you see within. And that's why things like the Big Bang are theorized and stuff like that. And I don't know if the Big Bang is necessarily true, or what the origin of existence is, or any of those kinds of things. I think that they are somewhat unknowable. But that being said, I don't think that then lends any credibility to any of the stuff that Bryce is saying. So it's like, I acknowledge that there is a lot of mystery on this planet, and a lot of mystery in our coming to be, and our origins and all that kind of stuff. The origins of this planet, of our galaxy, all of that kind of stuff. There is a lot of mystery in that. And I think it's inherently unknowable as human beings. Like, this is knowledge that we're going to only theorize. But that being said, all of this counter logic being levied by Bryce within the framework of religion is also just counter theory.
You have nothing behind it, so you're like Big Bang, but then that's the one miracle that atheists have to believe in, that something came from nothing. If they believe in the Big Bang.
Yeah, because no matter what you believe in, you believe something came from nothing. We all.
How about I don't believe anything and don't care how we got here? I have no idea, and it doesn't have any bearing on my life right now. It's the same reason why I don't care about genealogy. Has no bearing on who I am right now. I don't care who my ancestors were. What does it matter? It doesn't. I don't care. That's how I look at it. Oh, well, there has to be some truth to it. Yeah, there is some truth to it. I'm not going to know it, and you're not going to know it. I don't need to know it. I live my life without that knowledge, and I do just fine. The other rock was for milk. Got you, bro. The other rock, maybe that was the rock was actually the golden calf that the people were worshiping. Galaxy brain.
All agree on that. We're here and we came from nothing.
Yeah, it's I mean, and these are the fun conversations and the fun arguments, and we're not arguing on this because we agree, but these are the fun things to like think about.
There is nothing fun about this to me, by the way. Like these types of conversations. These types of conversations are like nails on a chalkboard to me. Like, I hate this shit. Like, if I was put in a room with a conversation like this, I would be clawing at the walls to get out. Like, I'm just like, shut up. This is so, it's pointless. It has no bearing on anything as far as my life goes. I don't care. I don't care what you believe. Leave me alone. just want to be left alone. I definitely want to be left alone from this shit.
Because you can just apply logic to things and try to sort it out. And I can tell you, I don't know anything. Ever since COVID,
Another soundbite.
I've learned I don't know anything. I know when you tell me I can't question something, I'm questioning it.
Yeah.
And I'm suspicious if I'm not allowed to. So if
Yeah.
you tell me, if I was Jewish and they were telling me not to read the New Testament, I'd be reading the New Testament.
Uh-oh.
If Christians were saying, don't read the Quran, do not read the Quran,
Go read
I would
it.
read it, right?
Also, I don't think that any of those, well, I mean, I don't know about, I can't speak for Islam, but as a person who was raised in the temple, no one was telling us not to read the New Testament. We just didn't. But I'm sure that if you wanted to, you're more than welcome to, at least in the temple that I went to. Like, no one's going to say, oh, if you read that, you're excommunicated. Anyway, not the point he's making. I'm just putting that out there. And healthy skepticism is great. Bryce has none of that. Bryce has literally no skepticism whatsoever. He takes the Bible as literal. Talking to a brick wall on that one.
Right? Yeah. And so if I'm not allowed to question the COVID vaccine, I'm going to question the COVID vaccine. Whatever it is that you're telling me I can't do, that's one thing I've learned. But I also have learned I don't know anything.
Well, I tell you what I know. Do you know what I know?
I think you know that Jesus is the Son of God, and
this is what I know. I know everything in this book, and that's what I know.
Bible says
there's something you share. Sorry.
Bible says.
There's something you shared with me that I thought was good, and I'd heard it another way as well. The Trinity is a hard thing conceptually.
Very hard for me to wrap my head around, and
yeah.
I don't care what Bobby Buckman says or what, and I don't know exactly what he says. I'm just referencing him because he's like one of the greatest pastors out there. He's like,
I don't care what he says, and I don't know what he says.
My favorite pastor out there, and I don't care what any pastor says. The Trinity is hard for me to understand.
I heard a guy when Bill Maher was doing some type of show making fun of religion and stuff, and he asked this guy dressed as Jesus, playing Jesus at some Christian thing about the Trinity, and he said, and this relates to something you said to me. He said, "Well, think about it like water. It can be a solid, gas, or liquid." Okay. And then you told me about the threes being like a sacred thing in the Bible.
Three's a holy number.
Yeah,
three's a holy number.
But the water example, and if God did make the universe, it's just like, it's like, hey, and it got Bill Maher. He was like, he got me on that one because it caught him off guard.
Yeah.
And respect to even if you don't believe in the Bible, you can go, oh, you know what? Well, like, that's interesting.
There's
some
a Trinity within the water.
A correlation there. And then the threes in the Bible, and everything's 3 days. He rose in 3 days. And there's so many examples.
It's played over and over. 3. It's a holy number. And so Roli brought that up. I've got to get into that, because if you don't understand the Trinity, the importance of it, okay, you're living in a Trinity. And the Trinity is the Trinity of Trinities. And let me explain what I mean. We live in time, space, and matter. Time, space, and matter came into existence at the exact same time, because you can't have time without space and matter. You can't have space without time and matter, and you can't have matter without space and time. So we live in a Trinity, time, space, and matter. Now let's break down time. How many Trinities does time have? Or how many elements does time have? I'm looking for a word. Elements of time. There's 3. Past, present, future. Okay, what about matter? Solid, liquid, gas. What was the other one? Space. Length, height, width.
What about the rule of 3 in comedy? Setup, middle, and punchline. I don't know. That's not what it is, but comedic rule of 3. He's spitting facts right now, people. And when I was saying that this is like nails on a chalkboard, this shit, I want to tear my face off hearing this kind of stuff. It's just like, oh God, shut up, please shut up.
So we live in a Trinity of Trinities.
Yeah, no, I mean that's super trippy.
That's Kent Hovind.
If we were smoking weed right now, I'd be like,
tripping out.
whoa,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, I'm like that now.
And by
you
the
know?
way, that's Kent Hovind's material. I highly suggest that y'all look into Kent Hovind. The only thing I really disagree with Kent Hovind on is that he's not a flat earther, which most Christians aren't. They don't understand why the Bible is a flat earth document and the importance of the flat earth document, because public education, which is owned by the devil, has pushed this globe theory, this heliocentrism on us, when the Bible quite literally says the sun moves around us. Well, and I know that it does. The Bible says so, and I know it. But if you're a Christian and you don't believe that, that's all right. You'll still go to heaven. You just don't understand God's creation to the extent that somebody that reads the Bible literally does.
But why? If they don't understand it in the proper context, how does that get them still into heaven? Just because they believe all the other stuff? Well, what if I only selectively believe a couple of things in the Bible, but not other things? I mean, I believe that, I don't know, what, like, I'm trying to think of a Bible thing that even makes any sense. I believe that, I guess that there was a guy named Jesus at some point. That he did exist at some point. Is that enough belief for me to get in? Where's the barometer there? Where's the line? Because you're saying that you can kind of selectively believe certain things, but not other things, but you still get in because you believe enough. Well, I want to believe just enough to get in. I want to be part of the club. Anyway, what do these guys think happens to the billions of people who were and are dedicated to the thousands of other religions? Oh, they go to hell. Bryce is very clear about that. The only path of salvation is through Jesus. So he said it in here. You only go to two places. There are only two options, I think he said. Heaven or hell. So all other religions are going to hell, and ain't nothing you can do about it. And obviously, that's where the party's going to be at, right? I mean, that's what it's sounding like to me. I'm going to be hanging out with Prince and David Bowie in hell. All the good music is going to be in hell. Like, all the good movies. Man, hell sounds like a pretty cool place. His smile when he thinks he says something smart is a little cute. Yo, yeah, for sure, Mr. H. Quit. That is absolutely true. He's got that that smug look of yeah, I've got the one up. I love that too when he's like, he does the loaded question, the leading question where he's got the answer already. You know what the most best-selling book of all time is? Huh? You know why X, Y, and Z? Because X, Y, and Z. It's like ask a question to tell the answer. If God was so nice, why would he make my existence solely about him? And if not, I'm banished for eternity. Yeah, exactly. It's why, what an unfulfilling life being a devout worshiper seems to be to me. You get up and go to sleep every single day, and your entire existence has to be in glorification of this entity who won't talk to you, won't make himself present to you. You have to blindly believe in this thing in the hopes that it exists for your entire life. What I really think is the saddest part, because to me, what I think when you die, it's basically like when you're put under gas, like when you're going into surgery, you just black out and it's just that forever. It's just, you just essentially fall into the unwakeable sleep, so to speak. Your consciousness just stops. I feel worse, like the worst for these types of people when that happens. Like upon death, just their life is extinguished and it's just nothing. And it's like, I mean, I guess they won't know it, so I guess there's that. But like to think about, however many years you had on this planet, whether it be 40, 90, however long your lifespan is, all of those years just to meet the same inevitability that everyone else is going to meet with nothing on the other side of it. Just kind of sad. But I could be completely wrong. No one knows, right? God made this place. Why would he make DLC for heaven and hell after all those hard 7 days? Yeah, for real. You need to go on a whole lot of side quests. I feel like Bryce is on an escort mission with Roli right now.
And just to get back,
when are we going to get to
quick,
Hitler?
I believe that the Giants built the pyramids. That's the only explanation.
The football team?
And I believe that they used
Wait, he said the Giants pardon me. The Giants built the pyramids. The Giants. I was going to say, are we talking about the New York Giants? Are we talking about the baseball team?
resonating technology.
Sure.
But I literally believe Giants built the Bible. There is so much evidence on Giants, brother, that we would have to do a whole podcast on Giants, and we will one day.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because
I can't wait.
It'll be so interesting. So if you don't believe
what
in
a
Giants,
teaser.
You're wrong. I'm sorry, and I'll show you the evidence another day. But I believe that Giants built them, and I don't know what built them, but that's just my guess. And
where are the Giants now? They just stopped being.
And Roli's is vibrating technology. You know, that's
they obviously had technologies we didn't have.
Obviously, look at the architecture, bro. Look at the architecture, not just the pyramids, the cathedrals. There's so much stuff that we cannot build today that they built. There's something that was greater than what we're living in.
And
I think.
I mean, maybe not with the tools that they had, perhaps. You know, I guess there is probably some validity to that, but we can absolutely build anything that was built back then now. In fact, we could probably 3D print it at this point. But again, with the tools, fine, whatever. I'm being pedantic now myself.
I think they got took out by a great flood.
There's something I want to circle back to before we kind of start to close this monumental first podcast.
Absolutely.
Monumental is right.
That happened at the inauguration.
Oh, here we go.
Very interesting. And it was Elon Musk's speech. And
Did you see the speech where he couldn't even produce a damn sentence? Did you see that one?
No.
America, it's gonna be better.
As a person who stutters often, I take great offense to that. Go fuck yourself, Bryce.
You know, he looked like a total dumbass up there. He can't even put a sentence together.
Well, he's not he's not a dumbass. Like he's
I don't think he's dumb, but in that particular
I've got
sentence,
internet now because of him.
Yeah.
Like Starlink is the only thing that's actually been, because we don't have wired internet to my land. I mean, he's obviously a very
and Starlink
smart guy.
ain't a satellite, by the way, guys. Starlink is
air balloons.
It's on balloons, and it's some type of reflection system or transmission system. I don't know. I'm not
whatever
smart
it
enough
is.
to know what it is. But
whatever it is, I've got the internet.
Elon ain't smart enough either, bro. All his rockets are CGI, and that
All his rockets are CGI. All of those launch bays down there at Kennedy, hour and change away from where I am sitting at this very moment, all bullshit. It's all a big simulation. It's all AI, brother. It's balloons. It's not satellites. I love that. And again, Bryce, yet again, saying, I don't know how it actually works, but I know it's not this thing. Well, I mean, flip it right back around, dude. I don't know how this world was created, but I know it wasn't God. See how dumb it is? Oh, anyway, we're getting into the meat and potatoes finally.
Starlink, it ain't satellites. It's on balloons, and they're sending you radio signals or whatever on balloons. And Elon's definitely not a dumbass. That's not what I'm saying. But
what about him hailing Hitler? So, I'm always the simplest explanations, the one that's the most plausible, and maybe
which is hilarious because you're listening to a dude who has the most convoluted explanations for shit. You think God burning the top of a mountain is the simplest explanation, and that's logical? Anyway, let's hear the rest of this. Salivating right now.
Like he was on his heart, and it was like, and he went out to wave to the crowd. But when I watch it, I'm like, there's two for me. There's two possibilities. One is that he really is a Nazi, which I don't think. I don't think he is, and I could be wrong, right? Like right. I'm not saying.
Oh, I have some interesting thoughts on this. Please keep going.
The other is
we know you do, Bryce.
If you follow his social media now, he's gotten very Trumpish with his posts. Like he really likes to troll people. He really likes to troll people.
Mm-hmm.
And because people have been calling Trump Hitler, which I think is egregious, I really think it's a giant troll. And that's my guess. But I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying we can't take pictures of other people waving and then put a picture of him doing it and then take that cop out that he's posting as like, oh, it's just the media twisting the words. It's like, no, you did it twice.
Yeah, and just before we get into Bryce's thoughts here, I would agree with that. I think it is pretty much a troll, but it's a dog whistle of a troll. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he knows what he's doing with that. So, yeah, it's him being trolly and an edgelord because Elon is just a glorified edgelord, really. That's just kind of who he is. He also lies about his video game skills, by the way.
So anyways, I want to know, I wanted to talk about that because it just happened, and it happened at the inauguration and it slipped through. And I want to hear your thoughts on it. And I showed it to you just not too long ago.
Yeah. And first off, I don't think he's a dumbass. I think he's very smart and he's very evil. So when I'm making fun of him not putting a sentence together, the reason he couldn't put up a sentence is not because he's stupid. It's because he's such a liar, and it's hard for liars to talk. I don't care how smart you are. When you're a lying bastard and you get up there to talk, you have to be damn near a psychopath to do it proficiently.
I mean, there actually is some validity to that. Broken clock Bryce over here.
Okay, so he's got all this evil in his heart. That's why he can't put together a sentence about America being great and how much he loves this country. I could talk all day about how I love America, how I die on Normandy for this country, how, I just love everything about this country. But anyways, and he has given good speeches before, so it's not like he can't put a sentence together. I just saw one speech where he was stumbling and mumbling, and me being a hater,
yeah. He could have not slept all night,
Yeah,
like there's no telling.
Exactly. And so here's what I say about him hailing Hitler, hailing the Nazis. I really don't think that he was, because I honestly think that Hitler was a good guy based upon my own research, not my public education indoctrination. I really do think before Hitler got on meth, he was a guy I'd go fishing with. He fought for his country. He wanted to purify it by kicking the greedy Jews out that were destroying his country and turning them all into gays. They were gaying out the kids. They were queering out the women. They were queering out the dudes. They were, you know what her first tranny surgery ever was? Happened to be in Germany before Hitler took over. You know the books that everybody makes fun of Hitler burning? You know what the books was? Queer books. Hitler burned queer books because Hitler didn't want a bunch of queers destroying his nation. They can't produce children.
But what about
when he got on meth and he turned on Russia? I believe that's when he kind of went full nutty. And I don't think that he was just like the best dude ever. And when I say I go fishing with him, I'm not saying he was the most trustworthy dude or I'd love him or whatever. But at some point in Hitler's life, I don't think he was that bad of a guy. I really don't.
I like how they went to the ISO shot for Bryce on that one. Like, cut Roli out of this for just a minute. Like, don't associate me with this for at least a second. And of course, I did an entire hour-long video on my thoughts on all of that, so I don't have to get into all of that just now. All right, hey, Rage Quit, thank you for hanging out, brother. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your shift, my guy. Yeah, there you have it. Good guy Hitler. Didn't think he was all that trustworthy, but, just a dude who he'd have fishing trips with. Like I said, a full hour's worth of conversation about that. But, that there is your There's your money quote.
And now, was Hitler perfect? No. But he was fighting for his people.
Was he perfect?
He
No.
wanted.
You know, everybody's got a few bad things about him, right? I mean, you know. Everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time. But at his core, Hitler, decent dude. Jesus Christ, man.
A pure nation with people. You know what the Jews was doing? They was charging interest. Christians aren't allowed to do that. Like
There's plenty of Christians charging interest everywhere on the
I
planet
don't.
right now.
If you need to borrow $1,000, Roli, I give you $1,000, and you wouldn't give me 1,100 back. You'd give me 1,000 back.
Sure.
So that's the big gotcha. Is that the Hitler started World War II and went on a genocidal rampage against the Jews because they were charging interest, because they were practicing banking the way that all banks operate currently? Damn. No words. No notes. Please continue. I appreciate that Roli just immediately is like, well, come on, man.
Between
But these Jews were controlling his country, bro. They were so cold and starving, they were using their their valueless money as insulation. They were stuffing dollars in their jacket to stay warm. They were burning dollars in their wood stove. Hitler comes up and says, hey, I'm kicking the Jews out of here because they're killing us with interest. And then now that he lost the war, he's the bad guy. Now, he ain't.
You're right. If Hitler had just succeeded in eradicating the Jews, I mean, I guess that there actually is some truth to that statement. That, you know, like if you put it in those terms, that had he won the war, history is written by the victors. So yeah, he would have been hailed as a good guy under those circumstances, under those very genocidal, murderous circumstances. Bryce, you're spitting so much game right now.
Perfect. I'm not a Nazi. I'm not a Nazi. I don't love Nazis. I don't want Nazis to win the war. I'm just saying they were in a bad spot and Hitler come to power. But
yeah, but you can't have it both ways, Bryce. You can't say something like that. You can't frame the entire population of Jewish people of Germany that way and then come out and hedge it and say, oh, well, but wait a second. I'm not actually one of those people. I'm not actually a supporter. I would just have a fishing trip with their big dog. Ay, good Lord. Yeah, it really is just like, I was thinking that listening to more of this would give some more context to the clip that's been going around, like the main clip that we just listened to that got snipped. But it really just adds more fuel to it. Because, I mean, he talks about the Jews very briefly early on in the clip there that's been going around, but he expounds upon it here, and it gets no better. If anything, it gets a whole hell of a lot worse. Yeah, yikes.
It's
Elon is
bad to take out a whole, like, to put a whole race into camps.
Right. And that's what your public education will tell you, Roli, because you believe your public education, because you haven't done your own research. When you realize there's no possible way they could have burned and cremated 6 million bodies, you're going to realize that they did not. The Holocaust ain't real. What about?
Oh, there you go. Actual Holocaust denial. That's not in the clip. Yeah. Damn. Wish I had had all of this context when I made the video. I kind of think I guess I went a little easy on Bryce here. Damn, dude. Full on Holocaust denial. That puts a little bit more context on his statement that he put out here, where he says, I know a lot of people died in the Holocaust. That's a fact. I guess not as many as they say, right? Which is always an interesting element of that in general, that it's like this semantic argument that these people make. Oh, it wasn't 6 million. Like, what does it matter how large the number is? It's just a nice, easy way to cast doubt because you want to cast doubt because you hate Jewish people. Like, just be honest. You know what I mean? Like, and a lot of times they will just be honest if you press it on them. Like, if you press them on it. If you really press these people on this subject, they'll be honest about it. Yeah, they just hate them. They just hate Jews. So poke holes anywhere you can. But that is such a textbook, Holocaust denial trope. Wow, I'm pretty amazed right now. The Jews were ganging the poor Germans up and charging interest to boot. Yeah, exactly. God damn. They were turning people gay. Just like Alex Jones with the frog water. The Jews were turning people gay. Are they still doing that now? Is that like a thing that's possible to turn people gay? Maybe they have like a Jewish ray. Maybe that's that ray that they were talking about, right? Like that the Jewish laser beams or whatever. Maybe that's what the laser beams do. Like the Jewish gay laser comes down out of the sky and just zaps people into gayness. Imagine what he says behind closed doors when he'll say this straight out. The thing with Bryce, though, is that he is pretty... Like, I do believe what Roli said earlier in the podcast about him being, like, this way no matter what. Like, so I think that he would say the same things behind closed doors as he would in person about this kind of stuff. I think that we just haven't heard the craziest yet. So we'll see if this podcast continues. Maybe we'll get some more great gems. I think this backlash is probably going to have him choosing his words a little bit more carefully now, because the backlash has been pretty swift and loud. But who knows? And I guess you do make a good point too, because he did say earlier on that, well, he wouldn't say, he wouldn't misgender Caitlyn Jenner to her face, but he'd say it behind her back. So maybe you are right. Maybe there is some stuff behind closed doors that we haven't heard yet. I don't know how you top this, though. This is like dessert for breakfast on episode 1 of this podcast. You know what I mean? Like how much crazier could you possibly get? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
The Bolsheviks, when the Jews killed tens of millions of Christians. Oh, we don't want to talk about that.
Well, I don't know much or anything.
Well, let me tell you about the Bolsheviks. It's when these Jews come over and killed the shit out of all these Christians. And they don't teach that in your public indoctrination centers. Guess what? That's why Tucker's getting schooled on this farm, baby, because I'm going to tell Tucker the truth.
Oh,
and the
I'll have to learn about that.
Is that history is his story, okay? And history is written by the victor. Okay, Hitler lost, so you didn't get to hear his side of the war. You didn't get to hear how the Jews took his country over. You didn't get to hear what they were doing. And do I believe that he tortured Jews to death and killed them and all this stuff for fun? No, I believe that they were work camps and that they starved to death because his very army was starving to death. You know why they lost the war? They ran out of fuel. They didn't have food. They didn't have fuel. They had 10 million plus prisoners.
Bro.
How are you going to feed them? You're not. You're losing a war. They're going to die. And that's what happened. And I don't
dude. I'm really glad that we undertook this exercise and listening to all of this, because this is a whole hell of a lot of extra context that you do not get from the initial clip that's going around. Good Lord. He didn't believe that the concentration camps were all of those Nazi experiments were not real. Yeah, wow. Full-on Holocaust denial. This is the real shit right here. That clip is nothing compared to all of this. I do want to look up what he's talking about with the Bolsheviks, but we've been going really long, so we'll plow through to the end here. Yeah,
he's
been on for almost 4 hours.
I'm saying all this about Hitler to say that, if anything, Elon Musk would be against Hitler, because Hitler, he was for freedom. Elon Musk is...
Bro, that's the quote. That's the clip. How is that not the clip? How the fuck is that not the clip? How is the clip that was going around not that? Oh my God. Elon would be against Hitler because Hitler was for freedom. Oh my fucking God, dude. We have gotten to the fucking core of this thing. Man. Eye-opening stuff, people.
Is for control. Elon Musk wants to put a chip up your ass and know every thought and control every move that you make. Hitler just wanted to free his people in his prime. Now, when he got on meth, I do think he went bad.
I need to move this a little closer.
Hitler in his prime. Prime Hitler. Yeah, the meth was what made him a bad guy. The meth is what made him go off the rails. But Hitler, at his peak when he was in fighting shape, unstoppable force for freedom.
Closer to me, or if you'll scoot a little to the right.
But we can't talk about the Holocaust like it was a real thing in front of me because I don't believe it. I don't buy the bullshit that they try to tell you at the public school.
I think that.
I mean, yeah, and there you go. That little smug look on his face, like he just said some really profound shit. Damn, I did not realize that it was full on Holocaust denial like this. Yeah, that little clip that's been going around is just, that does not do justice to this whole situation. You rage quit. I feel you, bro.
The biggest issue, there are things that you said, like Germany was in a bad place and Hitler was like super pro Germany and all of those things. But
yeah, let's hear how Roli's going to try to like work his way out of this fucking web of shit that he has found himself in now.
When you take a whole, like what we did to the Japanese during World War II, that was wrong. We can't take all the Japanese people and put them in camps. Okay?
Well, let me justify that real quick.
Oh, he's got justifications for Japanese internment as well. Man, Bryce has all the answers. Goddamn, Bryce. You really did fuck up bad, bro. You really are terrible.
Time of war. Did we kill those Japs?
What's that?
Did we kill those Japs?
No.
You know there was a large Japanese prison in Arkansas?
No, I didn't know that.
Arkansas housed a lot of Japanese prisoners in World War II because what Roli is talking about, when World War II went down, when Pearl Harbor went down, we couldn't trust none of the Japs. So all the white people and all the black people rounded up the Japs in America and put them in not concentration camps. That's a bad word. It was prisoner camps. They didn't starve them, though. They treated them very well, and it was very well known. Okay, Roli, here's the question.
It was really like a vacation.
To determine what's bullshit. You're about to go and get captured. You got to your east. You got the Russians. To the west, you got the Americans coming in. Which way you running, buddy?
Oh, my
east
God.
or west?
To the Americans.
You damn right. You bet your ass. Okay? And so I'm telling you, we put those Japs in camp because we had to for the safety of this nation.
Say it again. Say that very offensive term for Japanese people again, Bryce. Say it for the 8th time.
And you bet your ass we'd do it again if we had to. It was a different time, brother. It was a whole different time. And also, I don't think there's as many Japanese people in America as there is today.
Well, regardless.
Even deeper, Roli's really having to do some mental work here now to try to figure out a way out of this. He was trying so hard to get Bryce on a path that made sense, and Bryce was like, oh, you want to make sense? Let me fuck up even further. I'm trying to bring you back to sense. Oh, you want to bring me back to sense? Okay, I'm going to go 10 feet farther away from sense. Damn, Bryce really done fucked up with this shit, dude. Man. Oh, that is nasty work, bro. Holocaust denial and justification for Japanese internment. All in one podcast, bro. Epic. This is epic.
You know, during wartime, I understand that things are different, right?
Things are different.
But there's certain things that I can't. I think that there's a better way. For example, I don't think taking our best generation and again, like I know my lane is not to be a military scholar, but I can tell you there's a war in Europe. I'm not taking my son and sending him on the beach in Normandy. There's another way. And just flooding the machine gunners and running up our best generation, 17, 18-year-old kids, up a beach through water to storm France. I'm not going to do it. I'm absolutely not going to send my son, and I wouldn't go either. There had to have been another way. And
Yeah, so the other way would have just been to let it all just happen as it was going to happen. And then you'd be goose stepping like the rest of the world. Damn, Roli fucked up too. I mean, really, right? I guess you could make some kind of case for non-interventionalism in a broader sense, but when it comes to World War II, it's like maybe the most necessary time for intervention ever. I don't know. I guess there are arguments on both sides to that to an extent, but like it's a very minor extent, and I think that it all worked out how it was supposed to after a lot of devastation leading up to that point. You can only turn a blind eye towards it for so fucking long. And that's really what ended up happening, right? We were seeing the writing on the wall, so you have to eventually act, and that's what we did. So, yeah, Roli's not making a great case here himself.
And I think it was such an egregious loss of men to take that beach. I just can't.
Let me try to justify it. Let me try to justify D-Day because it does sound like a really bad strategy. We lost a lot of people.
If they're not your kids, it is.
Yeah. Well.
I mean, say if it's your kids,
Roli,
it is. But if it's
Roli, I know what you're saying, brother. I know what you're saying. You care about Americans. That's what.
Why would you be justifying this, Bryce? You wanted Hitler to win. Hitler was a good guy. Hitler was doing the right thing.
What you're saying, you don't
care
want
about
America.
people in
you
general.
Care about
but yeah, like we can't fight every war, and that was Europe's war.
So
Yeah, we can't fight every war, but maybe that war was a necessary one to fight. If there was ever a war that did not involve us, that it was necessary for us to get involved in, World War II would probably be the example of it. That's where the world part comes into World War II. Oh, good Lord. This is really deep in the shit now.
Let me try to justify it, brother, the D-Day incident. First thing I got to say, did you know that 45 tanks were supposed to be with them to provide those men cover? You know what happened to all of them except 2?
They sank.
They got off that boat and they sank in the water. There's 4 men in each tank. So instantly, all of our ground covering tanks at the bottom of the ocean dead. You know, that was supposed to be our cover for our men, our heavy artillery.
Well, and the bombing that missed, and you know.
But here's the thing: is that they were already invading from the south, correct, up through Italy. Okay, and at some point, I believe that the body count in Italy over the months of fighting was probably just as egregious as it was from the North attack and the Normandy attack. And so if you justify it by saying, yeah, we're going to lose 2,000 men in one day, but if we don't, we're going to keep fighting in Italy. Hitler's going to control that channel. Hitler's going to have all that territory to the north, and we're going to lose 10,000 in a month. So do you want to lose 2,000 in a day, or do you just want to storm that beach, lose those men that you know are going to die on that beach, but then you have them from the north and the south and the Russians from the east?
I would have waited before.
Well, and so there you go. That goes back to the same point. It's like, shouldn't you have not done anything? Isn't that what you would have wanted, Bryce? Just let Hitler continue on down the path of conquest? Like, why do any of that? Why have the intervention to stop the 10,000 later on or whatever? Like, I don't know.
Before I would have sacrificed our young men, I would have waited. It wasn't. And I know you can talk allies and that. And again, this is just my opinion. I'm not preaching this as the truth.
And we honestly don't have enough statistics on how many people were dying and what the conditions were in the north to the south. But yeah, dude, D-Day sucked. And I get what you're saying, but it might have been the only option or the best option, is what I'm saying. And yeah, dude, it would have freaking sucked, bro.
I mean, there's a lot of rationalizations, and we rationalize allying with Russia, who killed like close to 20 million people. I mean, like Stalin was, like we allied with Stalin, and then we gave them.
But they weren't Jews, so it was okay.
What did we do after World War II? We gave them Eastern Europe.
Right.
You know, like so much.
And also,
that's
too,
a tough gig.
I got to say, too, that I don't hate Jews. I just think that Zionists are evil, and they'll do anything that they can to claim back that land that they believe is theirs. And
common anti-Jewish sentiment right there. It's not the Jews, it's Zionists. Yeah, always got to love that. And, you know, and that's a very multi-layered element of this that I'm not going to get into today, but the one counter argument to that is, like, can't the Jews have anything? Like, they're not a place that can exist and be a Jewish place. Like, I understand not going in and displacing a whole bunch of people to make that happen, but like I don't like, I don't know. Again, it goes into a whole big, like, larger discourse it's not the time for it, but yeah, that is also a very common anti-Semitic talking point there. It's not Jews, it's Zionists. And I mean, you know, and there are Jewish people who also ascribe to that same mentality too, but I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, I guess I could say.
They're going to kill a lot of people to get it. And I don't believe that all Jews are Zionists. Okay, so, and not all Jews are greedy, just the ones with billions of dollars, you know? And so don't take what I say and act like I can't have a friend that's Jewish. And don't think for a second.
Oh, I want to meet the Jewish friend that you have after saying all of the things that you just said, Bryce. Show me that person.
That there ain't Jews out there that believe Christians are subhuman. Okay? So I have no hatred in my heart. I've never killed a Jew, bro. So don't come out here and say that I'm some Jew hater or something.
That's the justification. It's like, I don't have any hatred in my heart. I've never killed one. God damn, dude. Wow. Bryce just keeps going.
A Muslim hater or whatever, bro. Because if I meet you at the airport and we're saying hi and you ask for a picture or we just want to talk, I'm going to treat you just like a person. I'm talking about groups of people that systematically control things. And there's very few people that do that, be them Muslims, Christians, or Jews. So I do want to say that for sure.
Well, I think there's something going on in the world. And I think Elon Musk did that as a ploy to get under either the woke skin or somebody's skin, but
it's very suspicious.
It was very suspicious,
and it sparked up a great conversation here.
Yeah, we got down into it.
Great conversation.
So
yeah, I agree. It certainly sparked up a great conversation. That was absolutely the takeaway that I got from it.
I know there's a million things we can talk about, but we've got a million more podcasts to go.
That's right. That's right.
I think it's a good time to wrap up this first
one. That's right.
And dude, we're off to a great start. This is awesome, brother. I love
Thank you. Love you too, brother. And we love all y'all listening out there. If you're a Zionist Jew, I still love you. I'm never going to condone any violence on a Muslim, a Jew, another Christian, another human being. Okay, except
for Hitler when he was doing it against the people who were trying to make his country suck. And all of those great camps that he had, there was no violence there. They were just work camps. Couldn't kill all of those people. Not possible.
I'm cage fighting, okay? But we love
exactly,
all y'all out there.
This was posted.
All and all we're trying to do here is get to the truth. And if these conversations offend you, then that's not our intention, and we're not sorry. Because, or at least I'm not. Because the thing is like, I'm trying to find out what's true, and I'm trying to talk about truth. And I love everybody, and thank you for watching.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
Oh, what an epic watch. All right. Well, Jesus Christ, that was quite a slog. We certainly, man, I consider us enlightened now. I hope that you do as well. A million more, Roli said. Yeah, exactly. It certainly was an eye-opening conversation indeed. And I hope that they do a million more, Good Lord. I will be there for every single podcast. We will be here for every single podcast. I think we might have to make this a regular thing. I don't know. I mean, I didn't think we were going to go 4 fucking hours on an hour and a half podcast, but here we are. So I guess there you have it, right? That's episode 1 of the ArkanSanity podcast. What a ride it was. It's unfortunate that this is like a funny moment in the timeline, but like I don't enjoy how light the topic is being made for real. It's kind of nuts. Brother, that is one of those things that it like you're not wrong to feel concerned about. I certainly understand that feeling, but this is the consequence of a free society. So yeah, it is concerning and it is unnerving to have these kinds of conversations being sort of normalized. And I say that in the video about the subject. You know, these conversations and the casualness at which these things are talked about in this day and age is definitely a concern. And can it lead to escalations? Absolutely it can. But again, when you start to censor and you start to limit the ability to have these things out in the open, then all you're doing is driving it underground and making it something that people become more fervent about rebelling against. They already have radical views. If you try to limit their ability to express those views, it radicalizes them even more. So again, it's definitely unsettling. It's something to be vigilant about. That's another reason why you don't censor it, is because like rational people need to know that these things are happening. It's another reason why I wanted to do this stream tonight, is to make sure that we heard everything that was being discussed here. And I'm really glad that we did, because there was a whole lot that was not in that initial clip that we now know about. It's just, this is the world we live in, and it's only getting more divided. And again, you know, I started the stream off with this quote from MVP. I guess this would be a good place to end as well. So let's close it out here now with Michael Venom Page and the sentiment he said regarding the flying of his flag before UFC Saudi Arabia.
You were the only fighter today on the entire card that did not have a little flag next to your name when you were coming out on the screen.
Hmm?
Why?
I feel like everyone's always trying to find their group, and it all it does for me is it builds more separation. We're one race, human race, and I live by that. Though I don't care where you come from, what job you do. You could be a king, you could be a pauper. I will show you the same respect. I don't care where. It's for me, just constant labels that are attached to people, I just don't like.
In a world full of Bryce Mitchells, be like MVP. I guess that's where we're going to leave it for tonight. Thank you very much for hanging out with me through this ridiculous journey that we just went on. Be aware. Keep your eyes open, and in the face of this type of stuff, just keep doing the right thing. That's the best you can do. You know? Surround yourself with people who are doing the right thing. Try to help others when you can. And, you know, just rise above it. It's the only way to get over. Yeah, so that'll do it for tonight, everybody. Tomorrow night is the podcast. Myself and Chase Parton, who's in the chat right now. Last week's fights, we will be talking about each and every fight from UFC Saudi Arabia. That'll start at 9 o'clock p.m. And if anything changes with that, you can find that information at Yama Show on Twitter and Instagram. New video is out on the channel right now about this same subject we just did this 4-hour stream about. So if you want even more of my thoughts on this, you can watch that video as well. Either way, have a great rest of your night, great day tomorrow, and I will see you on the podcast tomorrow. Till then, everybody, take care, and as always, fight on.
ArkanSanity.